Back in the summer of 1977, a single line of data printed out of a radio telescope in Ohio. The astronomer on duty circled it in red pen and wrote just one word in the margin: "Wow." For decades, the mystery lingered. Was it a stray satellite, a burst of natural radiation, or was it something far less random? Now, as 3I Atlas drifts closer to Mars, Avi Loeb and his team have been retracing that moment, and their conclusion is unsettling. The pattern of that signal, its strength and its timing, align almost perfectly with where 3I Atlas would have been crossing the galaxy at that time. It suggests something extraordinary, that the WOW signal might not have been a one-time fluke, but the first faint whisper of the same object we are now watching approach our solar system. If you're curious about the cosmos, hit that like button and share where you're watching from. Whether you're riding the subway in New York or settling into bed in Tokyo, that small click helps this quiet conversation reach the other stargazers awake tonight. Loeb frames it not as certainty, but as probability. A 98% likelihood, he says, that the signal was not noise at all, and that small shift from impossible to almost certain changes how we view everything about 3I Atlas, because if it spoke once, what might it say again? And if it was reaching out, who or what was it reaching toward? The beauty of science is how it treats even the strangest events as data points. For years, the WOW signal was catalogued as a curiosity, nothing more. A spike in radio intensity, unlikely to repeat, filed away with a question mark. But Loeb's team revisited it with new tools, comparing its frequency and strength to what we know about interstellar wanderers. What they found wasn't a smoking gun, but a pattern, consistent with an object not moving randomly, but with intent. That intent could be natural, of course. A comet releasing gas, a burst of radio energy sparked by the chaos of motion. Yet the signal's narrow band was unusual. Nature tends to sprawl across frequencies, scattershot and messy, but the WOW signal was precise, like a whisper held on a single note. And now, decades later, we watch 3I Atlas and notice its trajectory isn't just passing through, it's curving closer, as though our solar system is more than an accidental stop along its path. This is where astronomy drifts into philosophy. If the WOW signal was its first hello, what does that make its approach now? A visit? A test? Or simply a coincidence too heavy with meaning for us not to notice? Scientists remind us of caution. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Yet evidence doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives piece by piece, like scattered puzzle fragments, only fitting together when enough are laid on the table. And that is the puzzle before us now. A 98% probability, a signal circled in red, an interstellar visitor that seems to grow stranger the closer it comes. Alone, each could be dismissed. Together, they form a story that asks us to listen carefully, to watch closely, and to question what we once thought impossible. Because if 3I Atlas is not silent, then we are no longer alone in the way we once believed. The question has always been, why then? Why, in the long, quiet span of human listening, did something pierce the silence in that single August night of 1977, and then never again? If the cosmos is full of chatter, why only 72 seconds? If it is silent, why those 72 seconds at all? It is this paradox that makes the WOW signal endure. It is not just data on a sheet. It is a riddle that feels almost alive, like a knock at the door never repeated, yet impossible to forget. When Loeb places 3I Atlas into that riddle, the pieces shift. Suddenly the silence is not a void, but a pause. Imagine a book where one word has been underlined in red and the rest of the pages are blank. The WOW signal was that word. For decades, we stared at the emptiness that followed, and now, as 3I Atlas curves closer to Mars, perhaps the next sentence is finally about to appear. Skeptics remind us that the WOW signal was imperfect. The telescope heard it in one ear, but not the other. Two feed horns, one alive with intensity, the other silent. Perhaps it was just a quirk, a lopsided glance at a wandering source. Yet what unsettles scientists now is not its imperfection, but its timing. The trajectory of 3I Atlas, reconstructed backward, runs through the same sector of sky. The alignment is uncanny, not proof, but far beyond coincidence. Think of probability as a scale. At one end lies certainty, at the other randomness. Most cosmic events sit safely in the middle. They are explainable, or at least predictable. But the wow signal was always weighted strangely, leaning toward deliberate order without ever crossing the line. By tying it to 3I Atlas, the weight tips further. A 98% chance, Loeb says, that the scales have been unbalanced all this time, and that the noise was not noise at all. What does it mean if he is right? It means the first true interstellar messenger we encountered was not Oumuamua, as we once believed, but a silent traveller that spoke long before we knew to listen. It means the story of interstellar contact did not begin with discovery in the 21st century, but with a whisper we half heard in the 20th. And it means, above all, that we are already part of a conversation, whether we recognize it or not. There is a kind of quiet terror in that idea. For decades, humanity told itself that the wow signal was curiosity, not communication. A one-off event, not a message. But messages do not care whether the listener understands. They only care that they are sent. A transmission leaves its source indifferent to its reception, and perhaps 3I Atlas was never speaking to us directly, but simply broadcasting, like a lighthouse flashing across dark seas. Ships that notice may wonder, those that do not drift on in ignorance. Yet, here we are. We noticed. We circled it in red ink. We gave it a name that carries awe and confusion in equal measure. And now, with 3I Atlas bearing down on Mars, we must ask, was that fleeting signal meant as warning, an announcement of its path, or simply the natural resonance of something not made to be silent? The mystery deepens when we consider how the cosmos stores memory. Space is vast, but it is not empty. It is filled with faint traces, echoes of collisions, whispers of dying stars. The wow signal is part of that archive, etched in our instruments and in our imaginations. It is both science and story, both number and myth. And like all myths, it persists not because it was solved, but because it refuses to fade. Loeb's probability, 98%, is more than mathematics. It is a nudge, a reminder that sometimes the universe does not hand us certainty. Sometimes it leaves us with puzzles, as though to test our patience or our humility. We are left not with answers, but with anticipation. And anticipation is its own kind of gravity, pulling us forward, drawing us closer to what might be revealed. As 3I Atlas drifts nearer, we must watch carefully. Its brightness shifts, its path bends slightly, its fragments scatter. Each change is recorded, compared, debated. But beneath the charts and models lies that single human thought. What if this is not just ice and rock? What if it carries intention? If the wow signal was its first hello, what form will its next word take? Perhaps it will not speak again. Perhaps the silence is permanent, but even silence can be meaningful when it follows a single note. Even silence can be heavy when it feels like it is waiting to be broken. And so we wait with it. We turn our dishes skyward. We tune our instruments. We press our ears once more to the cosmic static. Because once, just once, the universe answered. The closer 3I Atlas drifts toward our inner planets, the more its presence becomes impossible to ignore. Astronomers track its arc against the familiar constellations, noting how it doesn't move like a typical comet. Most icy wanderers tumble chaotically, shedding tails in predictable arcs. But this one seems measured, its brightness changing in ways that don't quite match the models. The fluctuations are there, yet they pulse with an odd rhythm, almost as if the object itself is aware of being observed. When Loeb speaks of a 98% probability, it is not meant to be definitive proof. It is a reminder that sometimes the improbable cannot be brushed away. He frames it like a scientist, careful and cautious, but the implication is larger than data alone. If 3I Atlas truly was the source of the 1977 signal, then we are not witnessing an interstellar coincidence. We are living inside a story that began long before we realized it. And that story may not be finished. Mars lies ahead, glowing faintly in the night sky, its red hue a reminder of how alien it already feels to us. For centuries, we have projected myths onto its surface. Gods of war, canals built by imagined civilizations, dust storms that seemed alive. Now, as 3I Atlas draws nearer, Mars becomes something else entirely. A stage, a threshold where the object's trajectory and our curiosity converge. What will happen as it passes? Will it scatter fragments into the Martian atmosphere, writing signals not in radio waves but in light and dust? Will its path bend subtly, betraying intention? Or will it slip past in silence, leaving only the weight of unanswered questions? Silence, after all, is deceptive. It is not the absence of meaning, but sometimes the most deliberate form of it. The wow signal was brief, intense, and never repeated. What if that is the entire point? A single knock, never followed by another, leaving us forever wondering if we were meant to answer. The red planet seems almost to lean forward in anticipation. Its thin atmosphere, restless with storms, could carry dust illuminated by the visitors passing. Its orbit places it perfectly along the path, not by design we can prove, but in a way that feels almost too precise. The ancient mythologies painted Mars as a harbinger, a planet of omens. Science has stripped those myths of their gods, but perhaps not of their symbolism. If an interstellar messenger crosses near Mars, it does so in the shadow of a long human history of expectation, and expectation itself shapes perception. Every fluctuation in brightness, every slight wobble of trajectory becomes more than a line on a chart. It becomes a possible signal, a possible message. The rational part of us insists on caution, data first, interpretation later. But the deeper part of us, the one that circled wow on that printout decades ago, cannot help but feel the pull of mystery. There is a quiet irony in all of this. We have always searched the skies for voices, listening for signals that might cut through the static. And yet, if Loeb is correct, the first reply already happened, and we did not even recognize it for what it was. We catalogued it, argued over it, then moved on, only to find ourselves circling back as if drawn by gravity to the same question. Was someone or something reaching out? The 98% probability is not comfort, it is provocation. It tells us that the window for doubt is narrowing, but certainty still eludes us. And perhaps that is deliberate. Perhaps certainty is withheld for reasons beyond our comprehension, or simply because the cosmos does not operate by our desires. Still, Mars awaits. Its orbit will bring it into closer alignment with 3I Atlas soon, and every telescope we have will be watching. Some expect silence. Others anticipate chaos, unexpected flares, fragments scattering, dust igniting in ways we do not predict. And some, though they rarely say it aloud, anticipate something more deliberate. Not a burst of noise, not a flare of light, but a pattern, a rhythm, something that would transform silence into structure once again. Because once, in 1977, that structure existed. For 72 seconds, the cosmos gave us order, not chaos. And now, with 3I Atlas closing in, we must ask, are we about to hear the second line of a conversation we never knew we were in? Perhaps the answer lies not in proof, but in patience. The universe speaks slowly. Its stories unfold across centuries, across orbits, across lifetimes. The wow signal was not a conclusion, but an opening note. And 3i Atlas, whether messenger, machine, or simply ice and stone, is the continuation of that note. And so we wait again, ears pressed to the static, eyes fixed on Mars, wondering whether silence will hold or whether, at last, the cosmos will speak a second time. The strange part about contact is that we imagine it as an event, a moment where a voice arrives through the static, a craft descends from the sky, or a message blazes across our screens. But what if contact is not a moment at all? What if it is a process, drawn out across decades, spread so thin across time that we do not even recognize it while it is happening? The WOW signal and 3i Atlas taken separately are curiosities. Together, they begin to feel like a dialogue stretched across years. A whisper once, then silence, then a physical arrival that forces us to remember what we nearly forgot. Perhaps contact was never meant to be instantaneous. Perhaps it was meant to unfold at the pace of the cosmos, measured, patient, careful. This is the perspective Loeb often brings, that we must widen our sense of scale. A civilization capable of sending an object across interstellar space would not measure time as we do. 72 seconds to us is fleeting, but to them it could be enough, a breadcrumb left for us to discover long after it was cast into the void. The arrival of 3i Atlas decades later would then be not coincidence, but sequence. The continuation of a sentence we never realized was being written. And this reframes the silence that followed. For decades, we thought the WOW signal was incomplete because it was never repeated. But what if it was never incomplete at all? What if the repetition was always meant to come not in radio waves, but in the form of a visitor we could not ignore? The message was not only sound, the message was motion. Mars now becomes part of that message. As 3i Atlas approaches, the red planet takes on the role of silent witness. If the WOW signal was the first word, Mars may be the punctuation. Its thin air, its dust storms, its reflective surface, all may conspire to echo or transform whatever the interstellar traveler does next. Some astronomers whisper of the possibility of luminous trails, dust halos, or resonant pulses that instruments might capture, subtle perhaps, but unmistakable once recorded. The deeper implication is this: the cosmos does not communicate on our terms. It does not speak in full paragraphs, neatly arranged for our comprehension. It leaves fragments, scattered pieces of a story that demand assembly. The WOW signal, the trajectory of 3i Atlas, the alignment with Mars, they are not separate mysteries. They are parts of one pattern, still incomplete, still waiting for us to recognize it. And recognition itself is dangerous. To notice a pattern is to change how we behave. Already, telescopes have been reassigned, resources redirected, minds pulled into speculation. If this truly is communication, then the first effect of the message is not on the cosmos, but on us. We are changed simply by wondering. We are transformed by our own anticipation. There is something humbling in this. For all our technology, our models, our calculations, we remain at the mercy of mystery. A single spike of data in 1977, a single wandering object now curving near Mars, and suddenly humanity is once again a species of watchers, straining to understand what we cannot control. In some ways, this is the purest form of science, curiosity sharpened by uncertainty. In other ways, it is the purest form of fear, because if the WOW signal was deliberate, then we must face the possibility that it was meant not just to inform us, but to test us. A controlled experiment across decades, one transmission, then one object, and then silence, to see how we respond. Do we notice? Do we listen? Do we prepare? Or do we dismiss, turning our attention back to ourselves until the next reminder arrives? Loeb does not frame it so starkly, but the weight of his words suggests it. Probability is not destiny, but it nudges us toward uncomfortable questions. If this is communication, then we are not alone in shaping its meaning. We are participants, whether ready or not. And so telescopes continue to watch. Instruments hum quietly in deserts, on mountaintops, and in orbit. They wait not just for noise, but for rhythm, not just for light, but for pattern. The cosmos is vast, but our awareness of it has narrowed to a single point, the trajectory of 3I Atlas as it curves toward Mars. What happens there may answer questions we have carried for decades, or it may deepen them, stretching the silence into yet another chapter. Either way, the story continues. We are part of it now, no longer passive observers, but listeners suspended in anticipation of the next note in a cosmic song we barely understand. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden in it all, that the universe speaks rarely, but when it does, it expects us to listen carefully, not once, but for as long as it takes. The first assumption, whenever humanity imagines contact, is that it must be friendly. We like to think of greetings, of open hands stretched across the void. The wow scribbled in red pen seemed to fit that story. Excitement, awe, a cosmic hello. But what if our interpretation was coloured more by hope than by evidence? What if the brevity of the signal was not an invitation but something closer to a flare? Urgent, fleeting, impossible to ignore, and not meant to comfort. Warnings rarely arrive as conversations. They arrive as disruptions, sharp and sudden, pulling our attention whether we want it or not. A lighthouse beam does not explain itself, it simply shines. A siren does not hold dialogue, it blares. The wow signal, in its short, unwavering strength, may not have been language at all, but alarm. Something simple enough to cross the gulf of interpretation. Notice this, Loeb himself does not cloak the idea in drama. He presents probabilities cautious, precise. Yet the number, 98%, does not just suggest that the wow signal was real. It suggests that ignoring it was a mistake. And if it was a warning, then we must ask, a warning of what? Here is where the mystery folds back onto 3I Atlas itself. Perhaps the object is the message, and the 1977 signal was nothing more than a marker, a pointer across decades. Watch this path, it may have said. Do not forget where this is going. The wow signal may have been less about communication and more about preservation, ensuring that when 3I Atlas finally drew close, we would already be paying attention. And if that is true, then silence since 1977 becomes meaningful. It is the silence of a teacher waiting for the student to act. It is the quiet between signals, deliberate, watchful. If the warning was given once, there was no need to give it again. The rest of the responsibility lies with us, to interpret, to prepare, to decide how to respond. Warnings also imply danger, not necessarily hostile intent, but risk. A visitor of interstellar origin carries with it possibilities we cannot dismiss: unseen radiation, strange fragments, trajectories that could alter planetary balance. The cosmos is not gentle, and even the most natural wanderer can disrupt everything it touches. But layered on top of this natural danger is the unsettling possibility of deliberation. If 3I Atlas is more than a rock, then what it chooses to do, or what was chosen for it, becomes part of the warning. As it nears Mars, instruments already register fluctuations in brightness, odd pulses that do not match ordinary cometary shedding. To some, these are quirks of observation. To others, they look eerily like signals, patterned not in radio waves but in light, patterns that remind us of 1977, of the single unwavering note that burned itself into our collective imagination. And this is the heart of the unease. If the wow signal was a greeting, its brevity is puzzling, but if it was a warning, its brevity makes perfect sense. You do not waste words when urgency is the point. You shout once, loud enough to be heard across the void, then trust that the listener will act. Did we act? Or did we forget, dismissing it as anomaly until the object itself forced us to remember? The The human story has always been marked by warnings unheeded. From comets seen as omens to scientists' charts forecasting storms, we have often waited too long to take signals seriously. What if the wow signal is the ultimate version of this pattern? A warning that spanned decades, ignored until the cause of it loomed visibly in our sky? Mars stands as the next test. It is not just another planet in this unfolding story. It is the canvas on which the warning may be painted. If 3I Atlas leaves trails, fragments, or signals as it passes, Mars will catch them first. Its thin atmosphere, its dust storms, its quiet stillness will bear the mark, and from our vantage point, we will be left to interpret what those marks mean. But here is the unsettling part. Warnings do not always come from allies. Sometimes they come from witnesses, or even from rivals, leaving signs not for our benefit, but for their own. If the wow signal was truly tied to 3I Atlas, then we must ask not only what it was warning of, but who it was meant for. Were we the intended audience at all? Or did we merely overhear a flare meant for another? This possibility makes the silence even heavier. We may not be participants in a dialogue, but eavesdroppers on a message never meant for us. And in that case, the real terror is not what has been said, but what has not. The absence of follow-up, the lack of repetition, could mean that the true listener already understood. We are left only with the fragments of someone else's exchange, trying to make sense of a story that was never ours to hear. Yet, despite the unease, the pull remains irresistible. The wow signal has defined generations of astronomy precisely because it left us dangling between possibilities. Greeting or warning, invitation or alarm. The uncertainty itself is the hook. And now, with 3I Atlas bearing down on Mars, that uncertainty has shifted into urgency. We are not just speculating about the past. We are watching the continuation unfold in real time. Perhaps in the end, the wow signal was both, greeting and warning, one inseparable from the other. A message not just to notice, but to prepare. A single note that could mean different things depending on how carefully we listen. And if that is the case, then its true meaning is about to be revealed, not in static, but in motion, as an object from beyond prepares to pass a world we have always looked to for omens. Mars, the ancient red beacon in our skies, has always carried with it the weight of mystery. Long before telescopes revealed its barren plains, ancient cultures cast it as a god of war, a harbinger of conflict. In the modern age, science stripped it of myth and recast it as a desert world, silent but compelling. Yet now, as 3I Atlas curves toward its orbit, Mars becomes something more. A witness, and perhaps a revealer. If the wow signal was the first knock, then Mars may hold the echo. Its atmosphere, thin though it is, offers a canvas on which even subtle interactions could be written. Dust storms the size of continents rage across its surface, their particles sensitive to the faintest disturbances. If fragments from 3I Atlas scatter, or if electromagnetic fields ripple from its passage, Mars will feel it first. And unlike Earth, where oceans and weather bury signs quickly, Mars preserves them. Its silence is its strength. Any disturbance lingers in a clarity that our instruments can capture. Astronomers are preparing for this. Arrays of telescopes sweep the skies, calibrated to catch not just light, but rhythm. Mars, in effect, is about to become a listening post, an amplifier of whatever truth 3I Atlas carries. The planet has always been a mirror for our imagination. Now it may become a mirror for interstellar intent. The possibilities divide scientists into camps. To some, 3I Atlas will prove no different from any comet, its dust tail scattering across Martian skies in a predictable, natural way. To others, it will show anomalies, fragments that glow too brightly, pulses that repeat too rhythmically, interactions that seem deliberate rather than chaotic. And there are those who whisper of stranger possibilities still, that Mars itself may respond in ways we cannot anticipate, resonating with the traveler in echoes too subtle for us to expect, but too obvious to ignore once seen. The unease comes from not knowing which of these futures awaits us. Every shift in brightness, every unexpected flare is catalogued with almost obsessive care, because somewhere in that data may be the difference between randomness and intention. The wow signal taught us that meaning can hide in the smallest spike, the briefest burst. Mars, in this new chapter, could transform the abstract into the undeniable. And yet, it is not just science that watches. The human imagination is alive with speculation. What if 3i Atlas uses Mars not merely as a waypoint, but as part of its purpose? What if the planet becomes a stage for a performance that only makes sense when seen from Earth? A luminous display, a trail of signals drawn against the Martian sky, a show of presence too deliberate to dismiss. Such a possibility stretches science into myth once again, but myth has always been the shadow trailing discovery. What unnerves many is the silence between the wow signal and now. For more than 4 decades, nothing. If communication was the goal, why wait? Unless the timing itself was the message. Unless the point was not to speak constantly, but to anchor a signal in 2 distant events. The radio burst in 1977, and now the approach toward Mars. 2 points across decades, connected by a single trajectory. A line drawn in the sky, patient, inevitable, inescapable. And this leads us back to the warning theory. Mars may not just reveal the presence of 3i Atlas, but the danger of ignoring it. If its interaction with the planet produces phenomena we cannot explain, then the meaning is clear. The object is not silent. It does not behave as mere ice and stone. It speaks through its effects, its disruptions, its patterns. Silence is not silence when its very presence bends the stage around it. Some even suggest that Mars itself was chosen deliberately. Earth is alive, chaotic, filled with noise that drowns subtlety. Mars, by contrast, is quiet, a world where even the faintest signal can be preserved for centuries. If you wanted your message to be noticed, if you wanted it to leave an imprint that could not be missed, where better than the red planet? The weight of this possibility hangs heavy over every observation. Each telescope tuned toward the sky carries not just instruments, but expectation. And expectation is dangerous because it can blind or reveal. Yet the danger feels worth it because Mars promises something Earth rarely gives us: clarity. The kind of clarity that could turn speculation into certainty. So we wait, with every eye turned toward that dusty world. We wait to see if 3i Atlas merely brushes past it, shedding fragments in silence, or if it leaves a signature that transforms myth into message. Either outcome will change us. Silence will deepen the mystery. A signal will redefine it. And both remind us of the truth we too often forget, that the cosmos is watching us as surely as we are watching it. Mars, once imagined as a god, may now serve as the canvas for a message from the stars. And in its thin air, in its restless dust, in its silent endurance, it may hold the key to what 3i Atlas truly is. What would it mean if 3i Atlas revealed itself to be more than natural debris? Not simply ice, dust and rock, but something built, crafted with intent. That possibility lingers at the edge of every discussion, whispered in labs and forums because it feels both thrilling and dangerous. Thrilling because it would mean humanity has at last confirmed what it has suspected for centuries, that we are not alone. Dangerous because it would mean the universe has already reached out and done so on its own terms. Mars, for all its stillness, could provide the evidence. A natural comet or fragment behaves predictably. It sheds dust in the sunlight. It fractures under pressure. It reflects light in ways we can model. But if 3i Atlas interacts with the red planet in a way that breaks those models, then we will be left with only one conclusion: that it is not what we thought. Consider, for example, the brightness fluctuations already observed. At times, they seem to pulse rather than scatter. They appear in rhythms too regular to be dismissed as coincidence, then fade back into the randomness of ordinary motion. A natural body does not blink with such precision, yet to confirm this, we must see it against a backdrop, and Mars provides just that, a vast quiet canvas where such rhythms could stand out, unmistakable. The idea unsettles even the most skeptical astronomers. If the WOW signal in 1977 was a radio knock, and if 3I Atlas itself is the continuation of that knock, then we are dealing with more than curiosity. We are dealing with technology, not ours, not human. Technology that drifts through the void, carrying with it the possibility of intention. And intention changes everything. If 3I Atlas is artificial, then its trajectory near Mars is not random, but chosen. Chosen for reasons we cannot yet see, chosen perhaps to use Mars as part of the message itself. A deliberate alignment, a stage chosen not by coincidence, but by design. Imagine a performance unfolding on a cosmic scale, patient and precise, waiting for us to finally notice. Some in the scientific community resist this idea with all their strength. They remind us that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence, and that to leap from mystery to machinery is dangerous. Yet even they admit the patterns are strange. The WOW signal, the timing, the path, the fluctuations, taken together, they resist dismissal. To explain them all away requires more imagination than to accept the possibility that something deliberate is unfolding. If Mars does reveal the artificial nature of 3I Atlas, then the implications for humanity are staggering. It would mean that contact has already occurred, not in a way that we can control, but in a way that demands we adapt. We would no longer be the only engineers in our cosmic neighborhood. We would be the apprentices, peering at the work of a master whose tools we cannot yet comprehend. And there is another unsettling possibility, that 3I Atlas is not active at all, but a relic, a probe launched long ago, drifting now toward the inner planets, carrying only fragments of its original purpose. If so, then Mars may become its resting place, a final chapter in a journey across light years, a tomb of technology, silent but revealing in its very design that it was once alive with purpose. This thought both comforts and terrifies. Comforts because it means no immediate danger, no looming test. Terrifies because even as a relic, it proves the existence of minds beyond ours, capable of crafting what we can only observe, and relics, after all, often outlast their makers. If 3I Atlas is one of many, then where are the others? And if it is the only survivor, then what ended the civilization that created it? Mars, in its silence, may hold those answers. As the visitor passes, instruments will scan every flicker, every pulse, every fragment that breaks away. If patterns emerge, regular intervals, repeating sequences, alignments with Mars's orbit, then nature alone cannot explain it. We will be left facing the truth that 3I Atlas is not simply a visitor, but a messenger. And here lies the most haunting thought of all. Messages are not sent without reason. They carry intent. They carry purpose. The WOW signal may have been the opening note. The object itself may be the message embodied. And Mars, waiting patiently in its orbit, may be the screen upon which that message is finally displayed. Whether we are ready to read it or not, the cosmos does not pause. It unfolds at its own pace, indifferent to our fear or wonder. All we can do is watch, listen, and prepare for the possibility that when 3I Atlas reveals itself near Mars, it will not be the universe asking us a question, but answering one we have been too afraid to voice. If Mars does become the stage that reveals 3I Atlas is artificial, the shock will not stay confined to observatories or academic circles. It will ripple outward into governments, into headlines, into living rooms where ordinary people glance upward at a sky that suddenly feels alive with intention. Humanity has always been curious about its place in the cosmos, but confirmation would transform curiosity into confrontation. Confrontation not with an enemy, but with the enormity of what it means to no longer be alone. The first reaction, as history has shown us, will likely be disbelief. Just as the wow signal was dismissed, debated, and archived, so too would early claims about 3I Atlas face skepticism. Artifact, some would say. Coincidence, others would argue. But denial is always the first defense against overwhelming truth, and denial rarely holds forever. Data accumulates, patterns grow clearer, and eventually the evidence becomes too heavy to ignore. Governments, of course, would move quickly to control information, to shape narratives, to calm or to contain panic. For decades, the idea of contact has lived in the realm of fiction, a thought experiment for scientists and dreamers. But the sudden confirmation of an interstellar artifact would demand real-world policies, monitoring, defense, cooperation. Questions would rise overnight. Who owns the discovery? Who decides how to respond? Who decides if we respond at all? And then the deeper unease would set in. If 3I Atlas is artificial, then someone built it, someone sent it, and that someone existed long before we ever noticed. We would not be looking at a future encounter, but at the echoes of a civilization that may already be ancient or still alive, watching us from unimaginable distance. The wow signal, reframed in this light, becomes not just a curiosity of 1977, but the opening act of a story in which we were always participants, even if unknowingly. For scientists, the revelation would split the world into two camps. Some would pursue answers relentlessly, eager to uncover technology, intent, origin. Others would retreat into caution, fearful that interpreting too much could lead us into danger. After all, if the wow signal was a warning, then perhaps the object is not a gift, but a test, a probe to measure our reactions, our abilities, our restraint. The public, too, would fracture. For some, the confirmation of artificiality would be exhilarating. Proof of intelligence beyond Earth would validate generations of belief and imagination. Religions might see confirmation of creation on a cosmic scale. Philosophers would wrestle with the implications of purpose beyond humanity. But for others, it would be terrifying, an intrusion, a reminder of vulnerability, a source of existential dread. The sky, once a place of beauty, would suddenly feel like it was watching us back. And still, at the center of it all, Mars would glow quietly in the night. The planet has always been our mirror, reflecting both our fears and our hopes. Now, it may reflect the undeniable truth of something not made by us, drifting across its orbit. What it reveals could fracture our sense of security, but it could also unite us in ways we have not known before. Because once the artificial is confirmed, the question is no longer if. It becomes what next? Do we attempt to communicate? Do we send signals back into the void, answering the note first played in 1977? Do we send missions to study the fragments it leaves behind? Or do we remain silent, cautious, wary of attracting attention we do not yet understand? This choice will not be easy. Every decision carries weight, and every possibility feels equally heavy. To act may invite a response. To stay silent may waste an opportunity. Humanity has long dreamed of its first conversation with another intelligence, but now the reality may not be words at all. It may be fragments, pulses, alignments, rhythms, messages that demand interpretation but never offer clarity. And perhaps that is the most difficult truth to face, that contact, if this is truly contact, may not bring us certainty. It may bring only deeper mystery. The wow signal left us with questions. 3i Atlas seems ready to do the same. The conversation may not resolve into neat answers, but into layers of ambiguity that stretch across decades. Yet even ambiguity changes us. To know that we are not alone is to be transformed, even if we do not yet know what it means. It forces us to see ourselves differently, not as the center of the story, but as one participant among many. It humbles us, unsettles us, and perhaps prepares us for whatever comes next. Mars, then, is not just a planet in this story. It is a mirror held up to us, reflecting not only the truth of 3i Atlas, but the truth of ourselves. How we respond to revelation, how we adapt to uncertainty, how we face the unknown. And in that mirror, we may glimpse not just another civilization, but our own capacity to grow. The cosmos does not rush. It reveals itself slowly, deliberately, across centuries and orbits. The wow signal was one note. 3i Atlas may be the second, and what comes after may not be up to the stars, but to us. The closer 3i Atlas draws to Mars, the more precise the instruments become. Across the globe, observatories adjust their gaze, recalibrating to capture even the faintest changes. Satellites in orbit, rovers stationed on Martian soil, deep space antennas, all turn their ears and eyes toward the visitor. It is not enough simply to watch. The task now is to test, to probe gently with tools of science, to see what secrets it might yield. The first tests are simple measurements. Brightness curves, spectral analysis, tracking every flicker of light. A natural comet scatters sunlight in predictable ways, its gases leaving signatures in familiar chemical lines. If 3i Atlas shows the same, then skepticism wins, another comet, albeit a strange one. But if the spectrum reveals unfamiliar elements, or worse, engineered alloys, the natural explanation crumbles. A single anomalous line in the data could upend decades of dismissal. Then there is the rhythm of its pulses. Light does not usually stutter with order, but already astronomers whisper about periodic patterns, too clean, too sharp, as though 3i Atlas is blinking deliberately. Near Mars, these rhythms may sharpen, amplified by reflection off the thin atmosphere, or echoed in the dust storms that swirl endlessly. If the patterns repeat at intervals, if they carry structure beyond chance, then they may be more than natural phenomena. They may be signals, written not in radio, but in light itself. To test this, scientists prepare arrays to compare data across continents. A single observatory may see coincidence, but when multiple instruments thousands of miles apart detect the same rhythm, coincidence dissolves. Suddenly, the patterns become real, undeniable, impossible to explain away. And from that moment on, the question shifts. Not if it is artificial, but what is it saying? Yet not all tests involve waiting passively. Some propose sending targeted radio bursts toward 3i Atlas, probing it with signals of our own. A simple sequence, a mathematical pattern, designed not to provoke, but to see if there is a reply. Others argue this is reckless, like shouting into a forest without knowing what listens back. But curiosity is relentless, and history shows that once the idea of communication takes hold, it is difficult to resist. Mars may not just be the stage, it may be the echo chamber in which two civilizations finally test each other's awareness. The possible outcomes unfold like branches. If 3i Atlas remains silent, then its mystery deepens but grows no clearer. Silence itself may be a message, or it may mean that whatever intelligence it once carried is long gone. If it responds, with light, with radio, with fragments that fall in deliberate rhythm, then silence is broken forever. Humanity will no longer be waiting for contact. It will be experiencing it. And then there is the possibility of something stranger still, that 3i Atlas reacts not in sound or light, but in behavior. that its trajectory shifts unexpectedly near Mars, bending in ways that cannot be explained by gravity alone, that it pauses, lingers, or alters course as though acknowledging observation. If such a thing were to occur, no denial could stand against it. The line between natural and artificial would be shattered in a single instant. The weight of these possibilities presses heavily on those who watch. Instruments hum with quiet intensity, data streams filling servers with raw signals waiting to be passed. Every astronomer knows that most mysteries dissolve under scrutiny. Comets behave strangely, yes, but strangeness rarely means intent. And yet, this time feels different. The wow signal ties itself invisibly to every observation, like a ghost from the past whispering, "Pay attention." Mars offers the perfect vantage. Its thin skies may act as a natural amplifier. Its quiet surface may record disturbances in ways Earth cannot. Already, rovers on the ground have been tasked to turn their sensors upward, scanning for unusual atmospheric flashes. Satellites orbiting the planet are recalibrated, ready to detect faint electromagnetic fluctuations. The planet itself, in its silence, becomes part of the experiment, an unwilling but invaluable participant in the search for truth. And if the truth leans toward the artificial, then humanity's challenge will not be measurement, but interpretation. A pattern in light is not a sentence. A shift in orbit is not a conversation. Communication may exist, but in a form we cannot yet translate. The danger lies not in absence of data, but in the temptation to impose meaning too quickly. Every culture on Earth will project its own fears, its own hopes, onto the signals, creating interpretations that may reveal more about ourselves than about the messenger. Still, the tests must go on, because to turn away now would be to abandon the greatest mystery of our age. And so the instruments stay fixed, the scientists stay vigilant, and humanity, for all its divisions and doubts, waits together under one sky. Perhaps Mars will remain silent, offering nothing more than a silent passage of an icy traveller. Or perhaps it will record something that changes everything, a flicker, a pulse, a shift that proves we are not alone, and that the first true test of humanity is not whether we can detect the signal, but whether we can understand what it asks of us. What happens if the data reveals structure? Not the chaotic fractures of a comet, not the jagged randomness of ice breaking away, but something geometric, repeating lines, symmetrical angles, forms too precise to be explained by chance. That single discovery would overturn centuries of assumption in an instant. No longer speculation, no longer a debate over probabilities or coincidence. It would be evidence. A clear sign that 3I Atlas is not simply a wanderer born of physics, but something crafted. Already, astronomers whisper about anomalies in its light curves, brief moments where brightness seems to cut too sharply, as though reflecting off flat surfaces instead of irregular ice. The models do not account for such reflections. Nature carves roughness, but geometry belongs to design. If these flashes sharpen near Mars, if instruments catch repeating symmetry, then denial becomes impossible. Humanity will be forced to accept that someone, somewhere, once shaped this traveller, and with acceptance comes a storm of questions. Who built it? When? Why? Was it launched long ago, drifting aimlessly across the void until chance brought it to us? Or is it purposeful, directed with intent? Its timing no accident but design. The wow signal tied to its trajectory suddenly becomes more than a curiosity. It becomes evidence of continuity, a deliberate chain of events that stretches across decades and light years. If structure is confirmed, the first step will be study. Every wavelength will be examined, every rhythm analyzed. Scientists will look for patterns in the geometry itself, as though its very shape carries a message. Angles may align with mathematical constants. Proportions may encode universal truths. A circle or triangle carved into its form would not be art. It would be communication, designed for recognition across civilizations. The language of mathematics is, after all, the only tongue the cosmos truly shares. But such a discovery would not remain confined to science. The world would respond as though awakening from a long dream. For some, it would be proof of hope, that intelligence thrives elsewhere, that we are not unique but part of something greater. For others, it would spark fear that if such beings can send probes across interstellar space, then they are far beyond our reach, and perhaps beyond our control. The revelation would be both unifying and divisive, thrilling and terrifying, sacred and unsettling. Governments would scramble to interpret the implications. If 3i Atlas is a machine, then it could be more than messenger, it could be instrument. Is it observing us, testing us, measuring our readiness for something greater? The very act of detection would raise the possibility that we are already participants in an experiment not of our making, an object drifting silently but with purpose so vast we can barely imagine it. And Mars, once again, would be the stage. Instruments in orbit could capture the details, while telescopes from Earth confirm them. The thin Martian atmosphere might even reveal subtle interactions, ionized trails, electromagnetic pulses, fragments that break apart in ways too precise to be natural. If structure appears in the debris, humanity will know beyond doubt. This is not chaos. This is craft. The psychological shift would be immediate. No longer would humanity debate whether we are alone. That question would be closed. The new question would be, what comes next? Contact is not just discovery, but responsibility. To interpret, to respond, to prepare. The burden of being noticed or of noticing changes how a species views itself. We would no longer be simply explorers of our solar system. We would be the observed, the recipients of a story whose meaning we must decode. And perhaps the greatest fear is that we may not be ready. If the wow signal was indeed the first knock and 3i Atlas is the continuation, then perhaps the builders expected us to be more advanced by now, more capable of recognizing the message. Instead, we argue, we hesitate, we doubt. The object waits regardless, indifferent to our pace. But the universe does not wait forever. Opportunity is not eternal. What if 3i Atlas is more than a relic? What if it is active, waiting for a trigger? Mars, with its orbit and position, could serve as that trigger, a certain alignment, a certain distance, and perhaps it will unfold in ways we cannot predict. Panels opening, signals resuming, patterns etched in light across the thin Martian skies. A revelation not hidden in data, but undeniable to every eye on Earth. The thought is both thrilling and unsettling. That confirmation may not come quietly through telescopes, but dramatically, in a way that leaves no room for interpretation. A show across the red planet. A message in geometry too precise to deny. The builders, whoever they were, may not have left their creation to be subtle. They may have left it to be obvious once the right conditions were met. And so scientists wait. Telescopes hum. Servers overflow with data. Humanity holds its breath, caught between fear and wonder, knowing that if structure is revealed, then the greatest mystery of our age will no longer be whether we are alone, but whether we are prepared to hear what the cosmos is trying to tell us. If structure is confirmed within 3i Atlas, then the next challenge is not proving what it is, but understanding what it means. Discovery is only the first step. Decoding, interpretation, comprehension, these are where the weight truly lies. Humanity will be confronted not just with the knowledge that we are not alone, but with the staggering responsibility of trying to understand what another intelligence has chosen to place before us. The first instinct will be to look for universals, mathematics, geometry, physics, languages that transcend culture, species, and even planets. If 3i Atlas carries symmetry in its shape or patterns in its pulses, scientists will search for constants hidden within them, prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, ratios of pi, signs that the builders chose signals no civilization could mistake for chance. The wow signal itself was narrowband, precise, a choice that screamed intention. If geometry now echoes that precision, the two together form a sentence written across decades. But interpretation is dangerous. A pattern may look like language to one group, yet appear meaningless to another. Already discussions fracture into schools of thought. Some argue that the message is simple: notice us, recognize intelligence. Others suggest it is more complex, layered, perhaps even a test of our ability to recognize patterns at all. A test that, if failed, may mean the message remains locked forever. Governments and agencies will argue fiercely over how much to share with the public. Some will demand secrecy, fearing panic or misinterpretation. Others will push for openness, insisting that a message meant for humanity cannot be locked away by a few. The struggle over meaning may become as dramatic as the discovery itself, because messages do not only reveal truth, they reveal who controls it. And in the background, ordinary people will begin their own interpretations. Every culture on Earth has stories of signs from the heavens, omens written in the stars. A confirmed artifact in orbit around Mars will ignite those stories again, giving them new fuel, new urgency. Some will see hope, some will see warning, some will see proof of beliefs carried for centuries, and all will be united by one truth: the sky is no longer silent. Scientists, for their part, will press forward with discipline. They will compare signals across instruments, test for repetition, map geometric alignments against natural constants. If the patterns repeat, if they echo numbers and ratios beyond doubt, then the message becomes clear. This is not random, this is communication. But what it communicates may not be a sentence, but a puzzle. A breadcrumb designed not to answer questions, but to make us ask more. And this raises another possibility. What if the message is not meant for us alone? What if it is universal, crafted to be seen by any civilization that stumbles across it? A kind of cosmic broadcast, indifferent to the receiver, meant to echo endlessly in the dark until someone notices. In that case, we are not the audience, but merely one of many. A sobering thought that the message was not tailored for humanity, but for intelligence in general. We are not chosen, we are incidental, yet even incidental contact reshapes everything. To know that such intelligence exists is to shift our place in the cosmos forever, no longer solitary, no longer unique, but part of a wider network of possibilities we had only imagined. The wow signal was our first glimpse of that network. 3i Atlas may be the second. If geometry becomes message, then decoding it will not just be science, it will be philosophy, art, culture, imagination. It will require collaboration across nations, across disciplines, across divisions. And perhaps that is the true message hidden in its structure, not the content itself, but the requirement that humanity come together to even attempt comprehension. A subtle test, not of knowledge, but of unity. Because if we cannot work together to decode it, then perhaps we are not ready for what comes next. The message may not be information at all. It may be a mirror, a reflection of ourselves, showing us not what the builders were, but what we are becoming in the act of trying to understand. Mars will continue to orbit. 3i Atlas will continue its path. But the meaning of their intersection is now ours to interpret. And in that interpretation lies the first true test of whether humanity is ready to take its place in a cosmos that is no longer silent. Up to this point, the discussion has revolved around signals and structure, evidence of intention encoded in the wow signal or in the geometry of 3i Atlas itself. But what if the object is not just a message? What if it carries something more tangible, something far beyond a signal? Humanity is only beginning to consider the possibility that 3i Atlas is not simply information written across space, but an artifact that contains technology. The idea is unsettling because it shifts the narrative from distant observation to direct consequence. A message can be ignored, misunderstood, or archived. Technology, on the other hand, has weight. It can be studied, reverse-engineered, perhaps even used or misused. And if such technology were to pass near Mars, fragments breaking away, evidence of design scattering into the Martian atmosphere, then humanity might soon find itself confronting not just the knowledge of another intelligence, but its tools. Consider the implications. If fragments reveal alloys unknown to our science, or configurations of matter too precise for chance, then we would be staring at engineering millions of years beyond our own. A single shard of metal from such an object could compress centuries of human progress into a single discovery. It could leapfrog our understanding of physics, of energy, of communication. But the danger is as great as the promise. Technology without context is not a gift, it is a riddle, one that could elevate or destroy depending on how we approach it. Mars, once again, may play the deciding role. If 3I Atlas sheds material as it passes, the red planet could catch and preserve it. Dust storms might scatter fragments across its plains, embedding alien alloys in the soil. Rovers and orbiters, already scanning with tireless precision, may stumble upon evidence too clear to ignore. Geometries carved into shards, repeating structures locked in crystal, resonance patterns hidden in metal. Each piece would be both treasure and burden, proof and temptation. And there is another, more haunting possibility. That 3I Atlas is not just carrying technology, but carrying potential, a seed. A device designed not only to deliver information, but to grow, to unfold, to activate under the right conditions. Perhaps the wow signal in 1977 was not only a warning or a greeting, it may have been a key, a trigger sequence broadcast toward us to prepare, to prime our awareness for the moment when the traveler itself would arrive. What if 3I Atlas is waiting for something? Not just our observation, but our response. This speculation pushes even seasoned scientists into discomfort. The thought of alien technology drifting into our solar system is staggering enough, but the thought of it being active, responsive, purposeful raises the stakes beyond comprehension. If it unfolds, if it reveals more than fragments, then the story of humanity shifts from one of passive discovery to one of direct encounter. And encounter carries risk. We do not know its builders. We do not know their intent. We do not know if they are still alive, still watching, or long gone, leaving behind relics like cosmic driftwood. To assume benevolence is naive. To assume hostility may be equally foolish. The only certainty is uncertainty and the responsibility of approaching it with caution. Yet curiosity is relentless. History tells us that humanity has never turned away from the unknown, no matter the danger. Fire, once feared, became our first tool. The atom, once untouchable, became energy. Space itself, once unreachable, became the next frontier. And now, perhaps, alien technology will present itself not as fiction, but as reality, drifting near Mars, daring us to notice. The debate will rage across every level of society. Should we study it, risking consequences we cannot foresee? Or should we leave it untouched, a silent monument to a civilization beyond ours? Some will argue that to ignore it is to waste the greatest opportunity in history. Others will insist that curiosity unchecked is the path to ruin. Both will be right, both will be wrong, and all the while the object will continue its path, indifferent to our debates. 3I Atlas does not hurry, it does not plead, it does not explain itself. It drifts silently, its secrets locked within, waiting for us to decide whether we are bold enough or reckless enough to open them. The wow signal hinted that something more lay ahead. The structure of the traveler suggests intent. And if fragments or functions are revealed near Mars, then humanity will stand not on the edge of speculation, but on the edge of direct encounter with technology not our own. Whether that technology is message, seed, or test, we will not know until the moment arrives. Perhaps that is the true nature of the signal and the object together, not to tell us who they are, but to force us to decide who we are when confronted with them. Curious or cautious, united or divided, bold or afraid. The cosmos may already know the answers. It is humanity that must find them now. The arrival of alien technology, even fragments, would force humanity to confront dilemmas it has never faced before. The problem is not only scientific, but moral. If 3i Atlas truly carries the work of another intelligence, then our every decision in handling it will echo across generations. Do we treat it as treasure, to be studied and used? Do we treat it as sacred, to be preserved untouched? Or do we treat it as threat, to be hidden away or even destroyed? History offers clues, though not always comforting ones. Every time humanity has stumbled upon new power, fire, gunpowder, electricity, the atom, it has been used for creation and destruction alike. Technology is never neutral. It becomes what the hands that wield it make of it. And so, the first ethical debate will not be about whether the technology is alien. It will be about who controls it. Governments will almost certainly move to claim fragments for themselves. Already, spacefaring nations monitor Mars with intense focus. If pieces of 3i Atlas scatter into its orbit, crash into its soil, or leave traces detectable by rovers, there will be fierce debate over who has the right to study them. Some will argue it belongs to all of humanity. Others will claim jurisdiction based on who first collects it. The question of ownership may divide nations long before the question of meaning is even answered, but deeper dilemmas will rise quickly. What if the technology can be reverse engineered? What if it reveals physics beyond our understanding, energy sources beyond our reach, communication methods beyond our imagination? To study it may transform civilization overnight, but to misuse it could endanger everything. Is humanity mature enough to wield tools not designed for us, created by minds older, wiser, perhaps even stranger than ours? Religious and cultural voices will weigh in as well. Some will see the artifact as sacred, a relic from beings greater than ourselves. Others will warn against tampering, seeing danger in what is not ours to claim. Some will celebrate it as proof of their long-held beliefs, that the universe is alive with purpose. Others will see it as blasphemy, a challenge to the uniqueness of humanity. The debate will not stay in labs and governments. It will spill into streets, pulpits, classrooms, and living rooms. Even scientists, who pride themselves on objectivity, will feel the weight of ethical conflict. To probe, to test, to dissect, these are the natural instincts of discovery. But when faced with something truly alien, even those instincts may falter. Is it ethical to dismantle what we do not understand? Is it ethical not to? If the artifact holds knowledge meant to be shared, is withholding it from the public a betrayal? If it holds dangers, is sharing it reckless? The possibility that 3i Atlas is not just message but machine raises another haunting question. What if it is still active? If it is probe, seed, or sentry, then tampering with it may trigger consequences we cannot foresee. The wow signal may not have been just a greeting or a warning. It may have been instructions, even conditions. Interfere too soon, too recklessly, and the story could unfold in ways we are not prepared for. These dilemmas are not just philosophical, they are practical. Humanity must decide quickly how to respond, because the object is already here, already revealing itself near Mars. Silence is a choice. Study is a choice. Intervention is a choice. Each carries risks, and the greater the reward, the greater the danger. But perhaps the greatest dilemma of all lies not in what 3i Atlas might give us, but in what it might demand. Messages, after all, are not sent without purpose. Machines are not launched without reason. If the artifact carries a seed, if it holds knowledge or power, then perhaps it is not simply gift or warning. Perhaps it is a test of our character. Do we share or hoard? Do we unite or divide? Do we seek wisdom or power? The answers may determine not only how we handle 3i Atlas, but how we are judged by the intelligence that left it. The ethical burden, then, is immense. Humanity stands at a crossroads. One path leads to wonder, collaboration, and growth. The other leads to conflict, secrecy, and destruction. The artifact itself does not choose the path. We do. And in that choice, we may reveal not only what the artifact is, but who we are. Perhaps that is the hidden brilliance of it all. The WOW signal in 1977 forced us to notice. 3i Atlas near Mars forces us to decide. The technology within, if it exists, may not only change our understanding of the universe, it may change our understanding of ourselves. The public reaction is immediate and explosive. For decades, people dreamed of first contact as words, clear signals, messages we could translate. Instead, the first undeniable proof arrives as a gesture. A movement in the heavens seen by every telescope, confirmed by every nation. The debate is over. The question is closed. We are not alone. The universe has answered, not with sound, but with motion. Governments scramble. Emergency meetings convene behind closed doors, leaders struggling to grasp what this shift means. Military strategists consider scenarios they cannot even name aloud. Diplomats issue cautious statements, urging calm, but their voices tremble. Scientists, exhausted from years of speculation, find themselves both exhilarated and unmoored. The dream of proof has become reality, and reality is heavier than dream. And still, the object moves. Not wildly, not threateningly, but with precision, as though sliding into a deliberate position. Its path curves closer to Mars, as though it has business with the red planet. It does not accelerate uncontrollably. It does not veer toward Earth. Instead, it arcs gracefully, almost elegantly, into a trajectory that defies chance. Some interpret this as reassurance. The traveler is not hostile, they argue. It is not charging at us. It is adjusting, perhaps to communicate, perhaps to reveal itself more clearly. Others see danger. To alter orbit is to display control, and control implies capability. Whatever intelligence launched 3i Atlas has power far beyond ours, an intent we cannot yet read. In observatories, the data piles higher. Light curves reveal sharper reflections, as though surfaces long hidden are now exposed. Spectral readings suggest materials not seen in nature, patterns of absorption and emission that speak of alloys, composites, structures. Some scientists whisper the word machinery, others, braver or bolder, whisper ship. And in the silence between those whispers lies dread. If 3i Atlas is active, then it is no relic. If it responds to signals, alters its path, reveals surfaces as if unfolding, then it is not only artifact, it is participant. The WOW signal in 1977 may not have been echo of chance. It may have been first word of a dialogue now entering its second act. The human imagination reels. Is it here to observe, to test, to warn? Has it waited, coasting silently until we matured enough to notice, to respond, to engage? Or is it following instructions written long before humanity even walked the earth, carrying out a program designed by hands long vanished? And then comes the most unsettling question of all. What if this is only the beginning? If a single object can shift with such precision, how many others drift unseen, waiting? If one signal in 1977 was enough to ignite decades of debate, what will we do when the actions become undeniable, visible to all, not just through telescopes, but with the naked eye? The orbit stabilizes. 3i Atlas holds steady as though settling into place. Its presence near Mars no longer feels like coincidence. It feels like appointment, a rendezvous written into the fabric of time, waiting only for us to recognize it. The world holds its breath. Silence no longer feels empty. It feels alive, filled with intent we cannot yet decipher. For the first time in history, humanity stares into the cosmos and knows, not believes, not suspects, but knows that something out there has acted deliberately in response to us. And in that knowledge lies awe and fear, and the realization that the universe, vast and ancient, has just leaned closer. The realization spreads like fire. For decades, humanity argued, speculated, hoped. But now the debate is over. 3i Atlas has acted visibly, undeniably, under no force of nature we can explain. And in that movement, the universe has spoken, not in words, not in pulses, but in the simplest and most profound language of all, intention. The first wave is disbelief, quickly followed by awe. News networks replay the orbital data in endless loops, the clean curve of its deviation displayed like a signature across the sky. Commentators speak of history in hushed voices, as though the very act of raising their tone would shatter the fragile moment. For the first time, humanity knows, not imagines, that it has been noticed. Governments move quickly, though not always in harmony. Emergency summits convene, leaders flying across oceans to meet in hurried chambers. Some urge secrecy, terrified of public reactions spiraling out of control. Others demand openness, insisting that this discovery belongs to everyone, not to a select few. Alliances strain, rivalries flare, yet beneath the surface of politics, one truth binds them all. No one can claim ownership of what has happened. The sky itself has become the message, and the whole world is its audience. Scientists, meanwhile, wrestle with their own shock. Theories pour forth, some cautious, others wild. Is the orbital change a maneuver, a signal, a demonstration? Was it triggered by our transmissions, or by some hidden program within the object itself? The data provides hints, but not clarity. Its motion is deliberate, but what that motion means remains a riddle. One camp argues that it is invitation, a gesture to approach, to study, to engage. Another warns that it may be boundary, a clear sign that we are being tested, that our signals have been acknowledged, but further steps may carry consequences. And while experts debate, ordinary people react in ways no model could have predicted. In city streets, gatherings erupt spontaneously, some celebratory, others fearful. Candles are lit, banners raised, prayers whispered. For some, the shift is proof of destiny, that humanity has never been alone, that contact was inevitable. For others, it is the fulfillment of long-dreaded warnings, that forces beyond comprehension now turn their gaze toward Earth. The skies, once backdrop to human life, have become active participants in it. The media, desperate for certainty, fills the silence with speculation. Every scientist interviewed becomes a prophet, every anomaly a headline. Rumors spread faster than facts, claims of secret transmissions, leaked footage, hidden knowledge. Some insist the object has released smaller craft. Others claim messages have already been decoded. The truth is less dramatic but far more profound. We are watching, and we do not yet understand. In classrooms, children stare at images of Mars with new wonder, aware that history is unfolding in real time. In boardrooms, corporations calculate futures reshaped by technologies not yet touched. In quiet homes, families debate whether to feel hope or fear, their voices blending into the global chorus of uncertainty. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifts in silence. Its movement has spoken louder than any words, but it speaks no further. It holds its orbit near Mars, steady, unchanging, as though waiting for us to interpret the gesture. Is it patience? Is it test? Is it the cosmic equivalent of a raised eyebrow, a pause that demands our next move? Some propose bold action. Launch a mission, they argue, to study it directly, send probes, landers, satellites, anything that can close the distance and reveal what lies within. Others urge restraint. To approach uninvited may be mistake, they warn, one that could trigger outcomes we cannot control. Between boldness and caution lies paralysis, and paralysis spreads quickly when the stakes are cosmic. Yet the pressure grows. We have asked, the sky has answered. To remain silent now feels impossible. Humanity must respond, not only to the object, but to itself. To choose fear or courage, secrecy or openness, unity or division. The traveller's shift has forced a choice, and it is one we cannot avoid. Philosophers and writers begin to frame the event in ways scientists cannot. Perhaps the object's action is not meant to be decoded like a code, but experienced like art. A gesture across the stars designed to provoke thought, reflection, unity. Perhaps the builders of Three-Eye Atlas knew that clarity was less powerful than mystery, that a question unanswered can shape a civilization more deeply than any simple reply. Whatever the meaning, one fact remains. The universe has revealed its presence in motion, and humanity has been changed. The stars no longer feel distant. Mars no longer feels barren. We are not observers looking outward, but participants drawn into a dialogue written across the heavens. The silence that follows is not emptiness. It is filled with intent, heavy with expectation. Humanity has always asked, "Are we alone?" Now, for the first time, the cosmos has replied, not in sound, but in orbit, and that reply demands an answer, not from telescopes or signals, but from us. The decision, when it finally comes, is not unanimous. It could never be. Some argue that sending anything toward Three-Eye Atlas is reckless, like walking uninvited into a house you do not understand. Others argue the opposite, that to hesitate now is to waste the most extraordinary opportunity in human history. In the end, the urge to act outweighs the fear of silence. Humanity has stared at the traveler long enough. Now, for the first time, we reach toward it. The mission is assembled at record speed. Satellites already orbiting Mars are retasked, their instruments sharpened for closer observation. Proposals for new probes are rushed into design, every engineer and scientist working under the weight of history. Some nations race to position themselves at the forefront, while others demand cooperation under the banner of a shared destiny. Out of rivalry and urgency, a fragile coalition emerges, a patchwork of agencies, each contributing what they can, bound not by trust, but by necessity. Out of rivalry and urgency, a fragile coalition emerges, a patchwork of agencies, each contributing what they can, bound not by trust, but by necessity. The first step is simple reconnaissance. Mars orbiters adjust their paths, closing distance with the traveler. High-resolution cameras zoom in, their lenses straining against the glare of the sun. What they capture is both stunning and unsettling. The object, once a faint blur, now reveals texture. Smooth plains gleam faintly, glinting with reflections that cannot be explained by natural rock. Angles emerge, subtle but undeniable, etched into its surface like deliberate design. Some see panels, others see scars, all see evidence of craft. The images ignite the world. Every screen, every headline, every conversation turns to the pictures streaming from Mars. No longer abstract, no longer data points and light curves. The traveler now has form. And that form whispers of engineering, of construction, of hands not human. But the closer the orbiters draw, the stranger the readings become. Instruments detect faint electromagnetic fields surrounding the object, pulsing irregularly, as though shielding or signaling. Spectral analysis reveals materials unknown in nature, absorption lines that suggest alloys forged in ways beyond our capacity. And then there is the most haunting discovery of all: heat. Not much, but enough to suggest activity. Enough to suggest that the object, whatever it is not dead. The debate intensifies. Some argue that the activity is harmless, background radiation, relics of old power sources slowly decaying. Others insist it is deliberate, that the traveler is awake, aware, and perhaps even watching. To approach further is boldness. To approach further is also risk. Still, the orbiters continue, compelled by curiosity stronger than fear. Their instruments scan every surface, recording every anomaly. Data streams flood back to Earth, filling servers with information that will take years to fully analyze. But already, patterns emerge. Some panels seem arranged in symmetry. Some pulses in the electromagnetic field align faintly with the signals we sent weeks earlier. Coincidence or reply? Scientists cannot agree, but the possibility lingers like static in the air. The next proposal is bolder still: to send a lander, not to touch the traveler. It is too dangerous too soon, but to position itself near, to observe directly, to feel the object's presence, not through distant cameras, but through sensors brushing against its field. Plans are drawn, rockets prepared, payloads designed. The debate rages: too reckless, too fast, too risky. Yet history has shown that once humanity begins to reach, it rarely pulls back. And beneath all the arguments lies a deeper unease. To approach the traveler is to cross a boundary. Observation from afar keeps us safe, distant, detached. To move closer, to send machines toward it, is to declare ourselves willing to engage. Perhaps the builders of 3i Atlas intended this moment all along, that we would hesitate, debate, and then step forward, proving not our knowledge, but our will. Meanwhile, the world waits, breath held, eyes fixed on Mars. Every anomaly, every flicker, every photograph is dissected endlessly. Some cheer the boldness, seeing a new age dawning. Others whisper fear, convinced we are provoking forces we cannot comprehend. And through it all, the traveler drifts, silent and steady, as though waiting patiently for us to choose. The silence is not empty. It feels alive, charged with possibility. To move closer is to risk, but also to learn. To stay away is to remain ignorant, but safe. Humanity stands at the edge of that choice, knowing the universe does not pause for indecision. Perhaps the traveler will remain still forever, indifferent to our probes. Perhaps it will stir, revealing more than we imagined. Perhaps its silence is not silence at all, but listening, waiting for us to cross the threshold it has set before us. Whatever happens next, the world will never be the same. We have sent signals. The object has moved. We have approached, and it has revealed form, texture, and heat. Dialogue has already begun, not in words, not in mathematics, but in the act of reaching and being reached. And in that dialogue, humanity begins to sense that the story is no longer about discovery. It is about encounter. The decision, when it is finally announced, feels like stepping across a threshold. Humanity has observed, debated, speculated, but now the time for hesitation is over. A mission will be sent, not just to orbit near Mars, not just to photograph from afar, but to intercept the traveler itself, to approach 3i Atlas directly, to look upon its surface at close range, to learn whether the object that has unsettled our world for months is relic or revelation. The mission is codenamed Sentinel. Born out of compromise between rival agencies, it becomes a project no single nation could claim, no single team could control. The urgency leaves no room for pride. Resources pour in from every corner of the globe. Funding, expertise, technology, all fused into a spacecraft designed not for conquest, but for encounter. Its instruments are delicate, its systems redundant, its architecture designed to survive the unknown. Cameras with resolution sharp enough to capture the texture of alien stone, spectrometers to analyze the faintest vapor, magnetometers to map the invisible fields that ripple around the traveler. But as the project takes shape, so too does the fear. Every detail of the mission sparks argument. Should Sentinel approach directly or circle cautiously? Should it send signals or remain silent? Should it carry messages of peace or avoid any gesture that could be misread? The debates stretch into sleepless nights, voices clashing over a truth too heavy to ignore. No one knows how 3i Atlas will respond. For all our science, the silence of the traveler is impenetrable. It has moved, yes, in ways that defy nature. It has revealed form, heat, fields, patterns. But it has not spoken, not in the way we understand speech. To approach is to gamble. Perhaps it will remain still, indifferent. Perhaps it will awaken, revealing what it has hidden for millennia. Or perhaps it will act in ways beyond our ability to predict, let alone control. Still, the countdown begins. Launch facilities hum with activity. Rockets stand ready, gleaming in the early light, their flanks marked with flags from nations once bitter rivals. Engineers run endless simulations, their screens flickering with numbers that blur into inevitability. The mission is no longer possibility, it is reality. When Sentinel lifts off, the world watches as one. Across time zones and languages, billions hold their breath as the rocket arcs into the sky, flames trailing into dawn. For a brief moment, humanity feels unified, not by conquest, not by war, but by curiosity, by the shared hunger to know. The launch is not victory, but declaration, that we will no longer remain passive in the face of the unknown, that we will meet the traveler not with silence, but with courage. Yet the closer Sentinel draws to its target, the heavier the weight becomes. Scientists argue in hushed tones. What if 3i Atlas is not meant to be touched? What if its silence was warning, its orbit a boundary line? If Sentinel crosses that line, will the traveler remain still? Or will it react not as passive artifact, but as active intelligence? Weeks pass in tense anticipation. Data streams back from Mars orbiters, showing the traveler steady, unchanging, as though waiting. Sentinel's trajectory is plotted with absolute precision, its engines firing in careful bursts, guiding it toward the encounter that may redefine history. And yet, beneath the calculations, unease lingers. Some pray the object will remain dormant, allowing Sentinel to pass close without incident. Others pray for the opposite, that at last the silence will break and humanity will be granted its answer. As the days tick down, the world prepares in ways both profound and absurd. Some gather in observatories, hoping to witness the moment of encounter through live streams. Others prepare shelters, convinced danger will follow. Economists speculate about technologies hidden within the traveler. Theologians preach of omens, signs, fulfillments. Artists imagine futures of unity or of ruin. The unknown becomes canvas, and every mind paints its own picture upon it. But through it all, the traveler remains what it has always been, silent, steady, inscrutable. And perhaps that is its most profound gesture of all, that it forces humanity not only to confront the cosmos, but itself, to question how we act when no answers are given, to wonder whether the silence is invitation, test, or indifference. As Sentinel nears its target, the tension crests into something almost unbearable. Soon, cameras will resolve the surface of 3i Atlas in clarity never before seen. Soon, instruments will drink in data from its fields, its emissions, its heat. Soon, humanity will stand not on the edge of speculation, but on the precipice of truth. And yet, even in the final hours, doubt lingers. What if Sentinel awakens something that should have remained untouched? What if, in reaching for the traveler, humanity steps into a story far older, far larger than itself? The silence does not answer. The traveler holds steady, waiting, patient, and Sentinel continues to drift closer, a fragile envoy of a fragile species, bearing all of humanity's questions in its metal frame. Whatever happens next, the universe will never again be as it was. The moment Sentinel crosses into its final approach corridor, the silence of anticipation grows deafening. On Earth, every screen in every control room displays the same stream of data, a steady cascade of numbers that mean little to the untrained eye, but everything to those who have devoted their lives to the mission. The spacecraft is steady. Its trajectory is true. Within hours, humanity will see what no generation before has seen. The surface of an interstellar visitor, captured not from a distance, but in intimate detail. The first images arrive grainy, blurred by distance, but even in their imperfection, they are startling. The object is not the irregular lump of ice and dust so familiar in comets. Instead, surfaces glint with geometry. Shadows stretch across ridges too sharp to be natural. Structures emerge, planes, angles, symmetry. Engineers stare, speechless, as the photographs resolve into something that looks not carved by chance, but shaped by design. The world watches as each new frame sharpens the picture, smooth sections of surface broken by lines that could be seams, curves so precise they mimic engineering more than erosion. On some panels, faint patterns appear, like etchings or inscriptions worn by time. Are they markings? Are they artifacts of construction? Or are they simply the tricks of light playing upon an alien material? No one can say. Yet in living rooms, classrooms, and crowded streets, people stare at the images and whisper the same word: artificial. The data continues. Sentinel's instruments register electromagnetic pulses, faint but regular, as though the traveler emits a heartbeat. The pulses align loosely with the wow signal of 1977, the frequency range eerily similar. The connection is not exact, but the resemblance is enough to chill even the most skeptical. The coincidence is too sharp to dismiss. If the wow signal was its first word, then perhaps these pulses are its second. And then comes the discovery that shakes the mission to its core. Sentinel's spectrometers, scanning the faint glow of the surface, detect warmth. Not merely the remnant heat of ancient energy, but localized points, clustered like nodes. The pattern is impossible to mistake. These are not random. They are arranged, distributed across the structure like systems designed to function. Whatever 3i Atlas is, it is not inert. It is active, alive, in a mechanical sense, perhaps even in ways we cannot yet define. The control room erupts in disbelief and exhilaration. Years of speculation collapse into confirmation. This is no rock, no comet, no remnant drifting aimlessly. This is machine, and it is awake. The images sharpen further, and what they reveal only deepens the mystery. In one frame, a section of the surface appears fractured, revealing layers beneath. The inner material is darker, smoother, reflective in ways unfamiliar. Some interpret it as damage, the scar of a long journey. Others see it as hatch, portal, design meant to open. The thought chills those who dare speak it aloud. What if the traveler is not only active, but waiting to reveal itself? As the transmissions spread across the globe, the world reacts in waves. Some rejoice, convinced the revelation is proof of intelligence, proof of a shared cosmos. Others recoil in fear, certain that we have provoked something beyond our comprehension. Stock markets fluctuate wildly. Religious leaders deliver sermons on contact, on judgment, on destiny. Artists paint visions of futures both utopian and apocalyptic. For a species that once looked to the stars for comfort, the stars now look back, and humanity must face itself in that gaze. Meanwhile, Sentinel presses closer. Its sensors drink in data with a hunger matched only by those who await it on Earth. But as it closes the distance, anomalies intensify. Communications lag with unusual interference, as though the traveler itself radiates fields that warp transmissions. Cameras flicker, stabilize, then reveal clearer than ever the scale of what we face. The object is vast, its surfaces stretching with purpose, every detail a new riddle. And then, in a single frame, something extraordinary appears. Along one edge of the structure, where shadow meets light, a line glows faintly. Not reflection, not artifact of the lens, but a band of illumination, steady and unnatural, a seam lit from within, as though energy pulses behind it, as though something inside is stirring. If the discovery of alien technology sparks ethical questions, then the response from humanity will fracture into factions almost immediately. Different groups will not only hold different opinions, they will pursue different agendas, and the collision of those agendas may shape the future of 3I Atlas far more than the object itself ever could. For scientists, the mission is clear: knowledge. They will argue that 3I Atlas, whether fragment or whole, belongs to no nation but to humanity itself. They will push for transparency, for open access to data, for international collaboration. To them, secrecy is the enemy of progress. A discovery this monumental cannot be locked behind classified reports or hidden in vaults. It must be studied, debated, shared. If it is message, it must be decoded. If it is machine, it must be understood. For many scientists, the stakes are not power, but truth. Governments, however, will not see it so simply. Their first instinct will be control. Information is power, and alien technology represents the greatest concentration of power ever to arrive in human history. The temptation to seize fragments, to lock down data, to classify findings under the banner of national security will be overwhelming. Some governments may cooperate, forming coalitions to study and share results. Others may retreat into secrecy, racing to harness whatever advantage the artifact offers before rivals can. The competition could echo the space race of the last century, but with stakes far beyond prestige. And the public? The public will not wait for official answers. In an age of instantaneous communication, every rumor, every leak, every fragment of data will spread at the speed of light. Amateur astronomers will live stream their observations, online forums will dissect every transmission, and speculation will fuel movements that no government can fully contain. For every official statement, there will be 1,000 interpretations. For every denial, 1,000 conspiracy theories. The truth may be stranger than any rumor, but in the absence of openness, rumor becomes truth in the minds of millions. Religious leaders will weigh in, framing the discovery in terms of prophecy, destiny, or divine will. Political leaders will argue over rights and responsibilities. Economists will speculate on what alien technology could mean for industries and markets. Militaries will prepare for threats they cannot define. The very fabric of society will ripple under the weight of the revelation. And then there are those who will not wait for answers at all. Groups outside government and science, activists, cults, entrepreneurs, may seek to shape events directly. Some will campaign for immediate contact, arguing that to hesitate is to miss an opportunity written across the stars. Others will demand silence, fearing the consequences of drawing attention. Some may even attempt to interfere physically, targeting observatories, satellites, or missions aimed at studying 3I Atlas in a desperate attempt to control or redirect the narrative. The irony is that the artifact itself may remain silent while humanity erupts in noise. A passive object drifting near Mars could ignite debate so fierce that we risk losing sight of the object entirely, consumed by our own divisions. The true danger may not lie in 3I Atlas, but in us, in our inability to face the unknown together. Yet there is also hope in this chaos. Times of division have also been times of unprecedented collaboration. The International Space Station was built in an era of competition, yet stands as proof that rivals can unite for something greater. The global response to climate science, though fractured, shows that humanity can mobilize around data when the stakes are clear. And here, the stakes could not be higher. If leaders and scientists can frame the artifact not as prize or weapon, but as shared inheritance, then perhaps cooperation can prevail over conflict. Some propose a new body, an international consortium devoted solely to the study of 3I Atlas. Modelled after CERN or the United Nations, it would pool resources, share data, and ensure that no single nation claims monopoly over discovery. Its charter would be simple: transparency, collaboration, caution. Whether such an effort succeeds depends less on science than on politics, and on whether humanity can rise above its instinct for rivalry in the face of something greater than us all. But the clock is ticking. 3I Atlas moves steadily, its trajectory unbothered by human debates. Every day it drifts closer, every hour instruments collect more data, and every moment humanity argues about what to do. The object itself remains indifferent, silent, enigmatic, yet its very presence reveals us more clearly than it reveals itself. Are we capable of unity in the face of the unknown, or will we splinter into conflict, too divided to grasp the gift or warning that drifts just beyond our reach? Perhaps that is the true test hidden within the mystery. Not whether we can decode the message, not whether we can harness the technology, but whether we can handle the knowledge without destroying ourselves in the process. The cosmos may already know the answer. It is humanity that waits, suspended between awe and fear, wondering what comes next. Eventually, the debates narrow to a single, unavoidable question: do we dare to speak first? Observation can only go so far. At some point, silence becomes a decision in itself. If 3I Atlas carries intention, if it has been watching, waiting, then perhaps the moment has come to answer. The act of communication is not only scientific, it is symbolic. To send a signal is to declare, "We know you are there, we are listening, and we are ready to be heard." But how does one speak across the gulf of civilizations? Language, culture, biology, all may be incomprehensible. So scientists return to the one thread believed to be universal: mathematics, prime numbers, sequences, ratios, patterns that emerge naturally in the universe and are unlikely to be coincidence. A simple series of pulses, a repetition of primes, could be humanity's first deliberate hello. Not a sentence, but a gesture, a hand extended into the void. The method of delivery becomes a debate in itself. Radio telescopes can broadcast with enormous power, capable of reaching across light years. But should we beam signals directly at 3I Atlas? Some argue yes, that if it is machine or probe, it may be waiting for a trigger. Others argue no, that broadcasting might reveal more about us than we intend, drawing attention in ways we cannot control. A compromise emerges. Send not words, but patterns. Enough to say intelligence is here, but not enough to give away too much. At the same time, visual communication is considered. Lasers, capable of precision and brightness, could send bursts visible even across astronomical distances. Short, repeating flashes, timed with mathematical intent, might act as light-based signatures. Already, observatories experiment with prototypes, testing whether such signals could be aimed at 3I Atlas without interference. The red planet becomes the perfect backdrop, its thin skies offering a stage for beacons in the dark. And then there are those who suggest something bolder still. Why not send a physical message, a probe launched toward Mars, carrying information about humanity, a plaque, like the ones attached to Voyager, etched with symbols of our species? But the time is short and the distances vast. To send something physical may take years, perhaps longer than 3I Atlas will linger. Communication, for now, must be carried by light and radio, not matter. The question of content lingers like a shadow. What do we say, if we say anything at all? Do we introduce ourselves with humility, acknowledging our infancy among the stars? Do we boast of our achievements, our technology, our civilization, or do we ask questions, hoping the builders of Three-Eye Atlas, if they are still listening, might answer? The words or numbers we choose may define humanity's first impression to an intelligence far older and wiser than our own. For every voice calling for boldness, there is another urging caution. Some argue that silence has kept us safe, that to announce ourselves is reckless. Others point out that silence may already be impossible, that the very act of observing, of beaming radar at asteroids, of transmitting signals into space, has already revealed us. The WOW signal, if truly linked to Three-Eye Atlas, suggests that contact has already begun. The only choice now is whether to acknowledge it. And so test transmissions begin quietly. Arrays across the globe coordinate, sending synchronized pulses toward the traveler, each sequence carefully chosen, simple enough to be recognized, deliberate enough to rule out accident. Prime numbers, ratios of pi, the building blocks of mathematics carved into radio waves. The signals race toward Mars, carrying not words, but intent. Humanity's first deliberate attempt to reach back. The waiting begins. Hours pass, days. The object continues its trajectory, silent, indifferent. Scientists remind themselves that communication across civilizations may not work in ways we understand. A response may come not in minutes, but in years, or it may never come at all. And yet, even in silence, the act itself has meaning. To send a signal is to admit that we are no longer content to observe in silence. It is to declare ourselves part of the conversation, however it unfolds. But silence too carries mystery. If Three-Eye Atlas is truly artifact, then perhaps it has already answered, in ways we have yet to decode. Its structure may be the message, its behavior may be the response. To expect words or numbers or pulses like our own may be to misunderstand its nature entirely. Communication, after all, is not only about speaking, it is about listening, even when what we hear does not fit the forms we expect. In the end, humanity does what it has always done when faced with the unknown. It reaches out, carefully, cautiously, but with wonder. The signals are sent. The patterns are written across the void, and though the universe does not answer immediately, the act itself changes everything. For the first time, Earth has not only received, but responded. For the first time, we are no longer silent watchers of the cosmos. We are participants. Perhaps that is the real beginning. Not in the WOW signal of 1977, not in the silent drift of Three-Eye Atlas, but in the moment humanity chose to answer back, a choice that may echo far longer and far louder than the signals themselves. The signals have been sent. Across the deserts of New Mexico, the frozen plains of Siberia, the quiet hills of Australia, dishes turned toward Mars and beyond released their coordinated bursts. Pulses of prime numbers, whispers of ratios, elegant sequences that no natural source would mimic. The patterns spread outward, stitched across the void by beams of invisible light. For the first time, humanity has spoken directly, not to itself, not into silence, but to something that may already be listening. And then, nothing. Hours turn to days, and the object continues its journey without deviation. Its brightness curves remain steady, its trajectory unchanged. For the casual observer, the silence is predictable. Communication across such gulfs was never going to be instant. But for those who waited by the consoles, staring at data streams in the dead of night, the absence of a clear reply is heavy. Some sigh with relief, others with frustration. Some whisper that silence itself is the reply. Yet even silence has texture. Within the endless flow of data, anomalies begin to surface. Faint shifts in rhythm, barely above noise levels, pulses in the object's reflected light that seem to echo faintly the very sequences sent toward it. They are not clear, not undeniable, but tantalizing. A fluctuation here, a stutter there, repeating just enough to stir suspicion. Coincidence, instrument error, or the faintest sign that something out there has noticed. Scientists are divided. Some caution against reading meaning into the random. Space is filled with noise, and the human mind is desperate for patterns. To find primes in chaos may be nothing more than wishful thinking. Others argue the opposite, that if patterns persist across instruments, across continents, then coincidence is the least likely explanation. The debate is quiet, careful, but under the surface it hums with urgency. If the traveler has replied even faintly, then humanity has crossed the threshold it has feared and hoped for in equal measure. Outside the labs, the silence sparks its own reactions. To the public, every update, or lack thereof, becomes fuel for speculation. Conspiracy theorists insist the reply has already come, hidden by governments. Religious leaders claim the silence is divine judgment or divine patience. Optimists say the reply is on its way, traveling slowly, waiting for alignment. Skeptics say the silence proves what they always believed. 3i Atlas is nothing more than rock and ice, and the rest is projection. Governments, meanwhile, tread carefully. To admit a possible reply risks panic. To dismiss it risks credibility. And so they issue statements wrapped in caution. More data is needed, analysis ongoing, no conclusions yet. Behind closed doors, though, the tone is different. Intelligence agencies press for answers. Military planners draft scenarios for the unthinkable. In private, no one dismisses the possibility that humanity has been answered. Meanwhile, Mars itself becomes part of the mystery. Instruments in orbit record subtle electromagnetic ripples near the planet. Disturbances too faint to classify but too regular to ignore. Rovers scanning the skies detect flashes in the thin atmosphere, brief glimmers like distant lightning. Each anomaly on its own is nothing, but together they begin to weave a pattern, something stirring at the edge of perception, never strong enough to declare, but never weak enough to dismiss. And in that liminal space between certainty and doubt, humanity lingers. Is this the first step of dialogue, or the echo of our own expectations? Is the traveller listening, or are we speaking into an empty sea? The lack of clarity is both torment and wonder. The unknown stretches longer, deeper, more intoxicating than any answer could be, because as long as silence is not absolute, hope remains. But some begin to ask darker questions. What if the silence is deliberate? What if the traveller has heard and chosen not to reply? What if the faint echoes in its rhythms are not conversation, but observation? A sign that it is listening, recording, studying, without revealing itself in return. To communicate is one thing, to withhold communication is another. And in that withholding lies power. The wow signal of 1977 lasted 72 seconds, enough to ignite decades of speculation. The faint anomalies in 3i Atlas's data may last longer, but they serve the same purpose. They remind us that the universe does not owe us clarity. It offers only glimpses, only fragments, leaving us to piece together meaning with fragile tools of reason and imagination. For now, the signals have been sent, the data flows, and humanity waits. Perhaps the traveller will remain silent forever, a mute witness to our eagerness. Perhaps it will reply tomorrow in a form we cannot anticipate, or perhaps it has already replied in ways we have not yet learned to understand. In the quiet, the cosmos feels closer than ever, not because it has spoken, but because we have. And whether the reply comes in days, years, or never at all, the act itself has changed us. Humanity is no longer only a watcher. We are a participant in a story larger than ourselves, suspended in the silence between signal and reply. The waiting sharpens imagination. If 3i Atlas has noticed our call, then perhaps its reply will not arrive as pulses of light or whispers of radio, but in something far more tangible. For centuries, contact has been imagined as conversation, words across the void, mathematics exchanged like greetings between strangers. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if the reply comes not as sound, but as movement? Not in message, but in action. Already, some scientists whisper of subtle anomalies in its trajectory, minuscule deviations so small they could be dismissed as noise, yet persistent enough to raise suspicion. A natural comet shifts under jets of vapor, but the rhythm here seems different, too measured, too even. If 3i Atlas has adjusted its course, even slightly, then the silence is not silence at all. It is reply through behavior, reply written not in symbols, but in physics. This thought stirs unease in boardrooms and laboratories alike. A signal can be ignored, dismissed, or misinterpreted. A shift in orbit cannot. It is action, undeniable, carrying intent without words. If the traveler changes direction in response to our transmissions, then humanity has already entered a dialogue, one far deeper than mathematics, one conducted in the language of motion. And so preparation begins. Quietly at first, but steadily, agencies expand monitoring networks. Satellites sharpen their gaze. Ground stations lengthen their hours. Every flicker of data scrutinized for signs of change. Some urge calm. The shifts may be illusions, products of measurement error. Others insist that caution is no longer enough. If 3i Atlas moves with intent, then it has noticed us. And if it has noticed us, then we must be ready for what comes next. What comes next, however, is the question that no one can answer. If the traveler alters its trajectory, will it draw nearer to Mars, to Earth? Will it linger longer than expected, as though pausing deliberately? Or will it accelerate, as if moving toward a destination we cannot predict? Each scenario carries implications as profound as they are unsettling. To linger is to watch. To approach is to confront. To accelerate is to abandon us, or to meet something else. Public speculation grows feverish. News outlets, starved for clarity, magnify every anomaly into a narrative. Some hail it as proof of first contact, the opening of a cosmic chapter long anticipated. Others fear it is omen, a test, a harbinger of judgment. Online communities fracture into believers, skeptics, and doomsayers, each convinced they know what the silence and the subtle shifts truly mean. Governments, caught between secrecy and transparency, walk a tightrope of words, careful not to confirm what they themselves do not fully understand. Yet amid the noise, a quiet truth begins to crystallize. Humanity is preparing, not for answers, but for possibilities, for silence that endures, for signals that confuse, for action that changes everything. The greatest danger is not what 3i Atlas does, but how humanity reacts when it does it. For if the traveler truly moves with intent, then our species will be tested not by alien intelligence, but by our own ability to remain steady in the face of the unknown. In laboratories, models are built to simulate the outcomes. What happens if 3i Atlas veers closer to Mars than expected? Could fragments enter its atmosphere or settle into orbit? Could the object itself slow, as if searching for a stable position? Engineers run endless scenarios, their screens filled with trajectories arcing across a digital solar system. Some of those arcs end far too close to Earth for comfort. And then the philosophical voices join. Perhaps the action itself is the message. Perhaps shifting orbit is a form of communication, a gesture too vast for words. To change course in response to our signal is not an answer in language. It is demonstration. It says, we hear you, we are aware, and we choose to move. What meaning lies within that choice, humanity cannot yet know. but meaning there would be. The waiting stretches, tension woven into every sunrise, every telescope calibration, every new stream of data. We stare into the silence, no longer certain whether to hope for response or fear it. Because if 3i Atlas does act, then the question will no longer be whether we are alone. It will be what role we now play in a story far larger than our own. Perhaps the object will pass quietly, its silence final, its mysteries unsolved. Perhaps it will shift, subtly or dramatically, leaving us to debate meaning for centuries to come. Or perhaps it will act in ways so undeniable that history itself will split into two eras, before and after. For now, we wait. And in the waiting, we begin to prepare, not only with instruments and models, but with imagination. Because the cosmos does not answer in the ways we expect. And when it does reply, it may not speak at all. The night it happens, no one is prepared. The object has drifted in predictable silence for weeks, its path traced with mathematical precision. Every model, every chart, every projection agreed. 3i Atlas would swing past Mars, a near-perfect arc, before slipping back into the deep. And then, without warning, the trajectory changed. At first, it is subtle, so subtle that a single observatory in Chile almost misses it. A fractional deviation, a curve where there should have been a straight line. But within hours, other stations confirm it. The deviation is real. The object is no longer following the course gravity alone dictates. Something else has intervened. The news ripples across the globe before dawn. 3i Atlas has altered its orbit. Not by accident, not by outgassing, not by random jets of vapor, but by intent. The shift is too clean, too sharp, too efficient to be explained by natural causes. It is as though the traveler had listened to our signals, paused, and then chosen a new path. For scientists, the moment is both vindication and terror. Vindication, because the patterns they whispered about now blaze in certainty. Terror, because the implications are undeniable. An object that alters its own orbit is not comet. It is craft, perhaps probe, perhaps relic, but artificial beyond question. Mars becomes the stage. Instruments in orbit detect subtle electromagnetic fluctuations, timed almost perfectly with the trajectory change. Rovers on the surface record faint disturbances in the thin air, as though invisible energy rippled briefly through the planet's atmosphere. For a world that has sat silent for billions of years, it feels like awakening. The world reacts with silence, the kind that follows only the most profound discoveries. If the traveler glows even faintly, then the implication is unavoidable. It is not only active, it is powered. And if it is powered, then it may not be relic, it may be functional. Scientists scramble for explanations, their voices overlapping in confusion and awe. Could the glow be radiation escaping through cracks? Could it be natural fluorescence, the byproduct of exotic material? Or is it deliberate, a signal, a gesture, a warning? No answer satisfies. No answer can. For decades, humanity dreamed of first contact as voices across the stars. But now the voice comes as light, as geometry, as power that should not exist in silence. The traveler has revealed enough to change us forever, yet still it withholds its meaning. And perhaps that is its most profound gesture, that in giving us evidence without clarity, it forces us to question not only the cosmos, but ourselves. Sentinel continues its approach, its cameras straining to resolve more, to capture every flicker of detail. On Earth, billions lean closer to their screens, hearts racing with every new image. And in the silence between transmissions, one truth grows heavier than all the rest. We are no longer observers. We are participants. And whatever 3i Atlas is preparing to show us, humanity must now be ready to see. As Sentinel edges nearer, the silence becomes unbearable. Every transmission carries weight. Every flicker of interference feels like omen. The spacecraft is now close enough to resolve details at scales measured in meters, not kilometers. Each image sharpens the traveler into something both magnificent and terrifying. And with every new frame, the sense grows stronger. This is no dormant relic. This is presence. The faint line of illumination detected earlier has intensified. What once appeared as a glow at the edge now stretches, spreading along the surface like veins of light awakening in the dark. The pattern is deliberate, branching with symmetry, converging toward points that shimmer faintly. To some, it looks like circuitry, to others, arteries. To all, it looks alive. The debate ignites instantly. Is the glow natural, an exotic chemical reaction stirred by solar radiation? Or is it deliberate activation, the traveler stirring after eons of quiet? Engineers whisper of systems rebooting, structures powering after dormancy. Philosophers whisper of eyes opening, gazes turning outward. Whatever the truth, the object is no longer still, it is becoming. And then comes the most startling anomaly yet. Sentinel's instruments detect subtle emissions, bursts of energy not aligned with solar radiation, not noise from its own systems, but frequencies foreign and structured. They are faint, almost buried in background static, but their regularity is unmistakable. Patterns emerge, repeating sequences, like the early bars of a song only half heard. Are these signals meant for us? Are they echoes of some internal process? Or are they directed elsewhere, messages sent into the void? The world reacts with unease bordering on fear. For generations, humanity dreamed of proof. Now proof glows before us, radiating into the silence, its meaning unknown. Some call it invitation, others call it warning. A few, braver or more reckless, call it countdown. In the control rooms, tension boils over. Engineers argue over Sentinel's approach. Should it hold back, hover at a distance, gather data without intrusion? Or should it close further, risking proximity in order to see the truth clearly? Every decision feels irreversible, every command a step into history that cannot be undone. The traveler has already shown it can move. If it perceives Sentinel as threat, what might it do? And yet, curiosity prevails. Humanity has come too far to turn back now. The spacecraft inches closer, cameras trained on the glowing seams, instruments capturing every pulse of energy. The images reveal fractures widening along the traveler's surface, edges peeling back with slow grace. Not crumbling, not breaking, but opening. The revelation freezes the world. For decades, we debated whether the object was artifact, probe, or ship. Now, as the seams spread, the question sharpens into something undeniable. This is not chance. This is mechanism. The traveler is not merely object, it is construct, and constructs that open do so with purpose. The implications strike with force. If it opens, what lies within? Chambers, machinery, something alive. Is the object revealing itself to us, or to something else entirely? The silence offers no answer, only the slow unfurling of panels, like petals blooming in the dark of space. On Earth, the reaction fractures. Some rejoice, convinced the traveler is unveiling itself in peace, offering knowledge or welcome. Others panic, certain that we have awoken forces better left untouched. Governments issue measured statements, but their calm words cannot conceal the tremor of fear. Markets convulse, religions fracture, communities divide. For every person who sees hope in the light, another sees doom. Meanwhile, Sentinel records every moment. The spacecraft circles cautiously, feeding back high-resolution images of the unfolding structure. What once looked like a monolithic surface now reveals depth, hollows, spaces vast enough to dwarf cities. Some panels gleam with metallic brilliance, others pulse faintly as though lit from within by hidden currents. The geometry is too precise, too deliberate to deny. We are staring not at natural wonder, but at architecture. And with architecture comes the unspoken question, who built it? Was 3i Atlas launched by a civilization long vanished, a relic still carrying out its ancient mission? Or is it alive in ways beyond biology, an intelligence embedded in design, awakening now as it nears the warmth of our sun? As Sentinel drifts, instruments detect another anomaly, faint changes in the electromagnetic field, aligned suspiciously with the spacecraft's own transmissions. Some interpret it as feedback, the traveler reacting to our presence. Others argue coincidence, natural resonance. But the pattern persists, timed almost as if in response. The possibility chills even the most rational. The traveler is aware. In homes, in classrooms, in crowded squares, humanity waits for the next transmission, every second stretching into eternity. For the first time, we feel not like observers of the cosmos, but like subjects of its gaze. The traveler is no longer question, it is presence, and presence demands reckoning, and presence demands reckoning. Perhaps the opening is gesture, a cosmic handshake. Perhaps it is test, a measure of whether we dare draw closer. Or perhaps it is something far older, far darker, written into the fabric of a mission we were never meant to witness. The glow intensifies, the panels spread further, the silence feels heavier than sound, filled with intent we cannot read. Sentinel hovers at the edge of revelation, humanity holding its breath as the traveler prepares to show us what lies within. As the panels continue to unfurl, the silence of space feels heavier than sound. Sentinel hovers, its instruments straining to capture every flicker of detail. The world holds its breath, billions of eyes locked on images streaming across screens. What had once been a distant point of light, an enigma traced only in data, now reveals itself in shapes that defy imagination. The opening is not chaotic, it is deliberate, controlled, as though following a program etched into its design. The panels fold outward with mechanical grace, exposing vast hollows beneath. Sentinel's cameras adjust exposure, revealing cavernous structures gleaming with reflections. Some surfaces shimmer with metallic sheen, others absorb light almost completely, swallowing illumination into darkness. The geometry is intricate, layered, almost fractal in complexity. This is not ruin. This is not chance. This is craft. And then, in a single frame, humanity sees what no theory had dared to predict. Beneath the outer shell lies structure within structure, like nested chambers. Columns rise from the interior floor, stretching into arches that support unseen machinery. Some pulse faintly with light, steady rhythms echoing the patterns of the electromagnetic signals detected earlier. The pulses do not scatter randomly. They travel in waves, synchronized, like heartbeat. The control room falls silent, scientists staring at their screens, too stunned to speak. The object is not only machine, it is system. A system designed to endure, to function, perhaps to awaken. The world reacts instantly. News networks loop the images endlessly, commentators struggling for words. Some describe it as cathedral, a vast architecture of purpose. Others call it vessel, convinced it is ship adrift across the stars. Still others whisper of seed, a construct meant to carry something precious across the void. Whatever name is given, one truth stands clear. Humanity has never seen anything like this. And then Sentinel records something stranger still. Within the central hollow, faint lines of light shift, not steady like the exterior seams, but flowing, moving, as though coursing along invisible pathways. The patterns resemble rivers of illumination, branching, merging, crossing. To engineers, it looks like energy distribution. To philosophers, it looks like veins. To everyone, it looks alive. The debate explodes. Are we witnessing power systems awakening? Or is this intelligence itself, expressed not in biology, but in currents of energy? Is the traveler not only vessel, but being? The questions come faster than answers, each one heavier than the last. And then, as though to confirm suspicion, Sentinel's instruments register direct interference. The data stream fluctuates, images distort, sensors briefly fail. For a moment, control is nearly lost. But then the systems stabilize, the transmission clears, and the feed continues. Yet the anomaly leaves a chilling thought. Something within the traveler has noticed Sentinel. On Earth, the implications divide humanity further. Some proclaim the discovery as triumph, proof that intelligence exists beyond Earth. Others call it disaster, proof that we have trespassed where we do not belong. Theories multiply, some convinced we are witnessing awakening, others certain we are witnessing preparation. Religious leaders speak of messengers, warnings, or revelations. Scientists argue with urgency, their voices cracking under the weight of history. But beneath the noise, a deeper truth emerges. Whatever Three-Eye Atlas is, it is not artifact, it is active. The traveler is not drifting relic, but system, built, maintained, still alive in ways we cannot yet comprehend. And then comes the most haunting image yet. Sentinel's cameras capture a chamber at the structure's heart. Within it, suspended in darkness, floats a sphere of material unlike anything known. It glows faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the interior currents. The sphere is smooth, seamless, and impossibly perfect. Some call it core, some call it engine, some dare to whisper consciousness. The discovery shakes humanity to its core. If the sphere is power source, then the traveler is functional, perhaps waiting to resume its mission. If it is intelligence, then the traveler is alive. And if it is alive, then we are not observing machine, we are encountering being. As Sentinel transmits these images, the world falls silent. There is no celebration, no panic, only stunned awe. For the first time, we look not at the surface of mystery, but into its heart. And what we see defies every expectation, every theory, every hope and fear we carried. Perhaps the sphere is message, waiting for us to decode. Perhaps it is seed, meant to awaken only under certain conditions. Or perhaps it is mirror, reflecting not itself but us, forcing humanity to confront what it means to be alive, to be intelligent, to be aware in the vastness of cosmos. Whatever it is, one truth is undeniable. Three-Eye Atlas has opened. It has revealed its interior, and in doing so, it has changed us forever. Sentinel continues to orbit, recording tirelessly, a lone envoy standing at the edge of revelation. The silence of the traveler feels less like absence, more like waiting, and humanity, breath held, wonders whether we are witnesses to ancient machine or the first guests to a living mind awakening in the dark. The images of the glowing sphere ripple across the planet like shock waves. For decades, humanity dreamed of finding life beyond Earth. Few imagined it might look like this, a silent traveler, opening to reveal a heart that glows with rhythm and symmetry, pulsing as if alive. Within hours of Sentinel's transmission, debates ignite in every corner of human civilization. In laboratories, scientists pore over the data. Some insist the sphere is reactor, a power source designed to endure for millennia. Its pulsing light, they argue, is the signature of advanced energy cycling, a controlled reaction beyond anything humanity has engineered. Others are less certain. The synchronization of the pulses, the almost biological cadence, suggests more than machinery. Could it be processor, network, or something stranger, a non-biological intelligence, encased in perfect shell, alive but not in any way we recognize? Philosophers and writers seize on the second possibility, their words spilling into headlines. If the sphere is mind, then the traveler is not only machine, but being. And if it is being, then we are not observing artifact, but encountering presence. For some, this is triumph, proof that consciousness is not confined to biology, that the universe teems with forms of awareness more varied than we dared imagine. For others, it is terror. To gaze into that glowing sphere is to confront the possibility of power and intention beyond comprehension. The public fractures along the same lines. Some celebrate, calling the revelation proof of cosmic kinship, an invitation to think of intelligence not as human privilege, but universal phenomenon. Others recoil, fearing that the sphere is weapon, core designed for purposes hostile or indifferent to life. Whispers spread of ancient machines sent not to greet, but to test, to harvest, to judge. In the absence of clarity, imagination breeds fear as easily as wonder. Meanwhile, Sentinel continues to gather data, its instruments brushing against mysteries no equation can fully hold. The pulses of the sphere are no longer steady background. They fluctuate subtly, irregularly, in patterns too complex to dismiss. At first, scientists blame interference, artifacts of distance and transmission, but the patterns persist, repeating in sequences that defy randomness. Lines of data curve into symmetry, rising and falling in rhythm. The conclusion, though terrifying, becomes unavoidable. The sphere is not silent. It is responding. Responding to what? That question dominates every discussion. Some point to Sentinel itself, its transmissions brushing against the traveler, provoking reply. Others argue the response is directed elsewhere, part of a dialogue older and larger than humanity. A few whisper the most unsettling thought of all. The sphere is not replying. It is listening. As the evidence mounts, the control room grapples with decisions that feel heavier than any in history. Should Sentinel attempt direct communication? Should it transmit signals designed to test the sphere's awareness? Or should it remain silent, gathering only data, leaving the traveler undisturbed? The stakes are immeasurable. To reach out may invite dialogue or provoke reaction. To stay silent may keep us safe or squander the moment. And yet, in the silence of debate, the sphere seems to choose for us. Sentinel's magnetometers register subtle fluctuations in the surrounding field, pulses aligned suspiciously with the timing of human transmissions. The pattern resembles echo, but not simple reflection. It bends, shifts, evolves, as though the traveler is not merely bouncing back signals, but shaping them. Humanity stares at the data, chilled by the thought. The object is aware of our presence. The revelation transforms the world overnight. Fear spreads through streets and headlines alike. If the traveler knows us, then ignorance is no longer shield. We are seen. Some react with awe, convinced we are witnessing first contact in real time. Others fall into dread, convinced we are insects beneath the gaze of something vast. And through it all, Sentinel drifts closer, tireless, fragile envoy of a species caught between wonder and terror. Its cameras record the glowing sphere with greater clarity, each pulse shimmering like heartbeat across the void. The transmissions pour into Earth's servers, analyzed in real time, dissected frame by frame. Yet for all the analysis, the mystery only deepens. In one sequence, the pulses shift abruptly, forming repetition unlike the rhythms before, a sequence too clean, too deliberate to be mistake. To some, it looks like prime numbers. To others, it looks like timing meant to mirror Sentinel's own transmissions. Whatever the interpretation, the effect is the same. The sphere has crossed from background into dialogue. The implications are staggering. For decades, humanity wondered if the wow signal of 1977 was first word from the cosmos. Now, as Sentinel circles the traveler, the glowing sphere pulses with rhythm too deliberate to ignore. Perhaps the wow signal was not anomaly, but greeting. Perhaps this is its reply, arriving not in sound, but in light. The silence of the cosmos has shifted into something heavier, something alive. For the first time in history, humanity faces presence that not only exists but responds. The sphere glows in its chamber, steady, rhythmic, patient, as though waiting for us to decide whether we will continue the dialogue it has begun. Perhaps it is invitation, perhaps it is test, perhaps it is mirror, showing us not what lies within it, but what lies within ourselves. Whatever the truth, one reality is clear. The traveler is not silent. It has heard us, and it is answering. The first time the pulses align into sequence, disbelief spreads through the control room like a shockwave. For hours, the sphere's rhythms have been erratic yet patterned, curious but inconclusive. But now, as Sentinel inches nearer, the data sharpens into structure. The pulses are no longer background noise, no longer simple echoes. They are deliberate. Repetition builds upon repetition, symmetry unfolding across the spectrum until the pattern becomes undeniable. The traveler is not only aware, it is speaking. At first, the scientists resist the word. Message feels too heavy, too conclusive. They call it anomaly, structured emission, patterned interference. But deep down, no one is fooled. The glowing heart of 3i Atlas is pulsing in sequences too ordered to be random, too precise to be natural. It is not just noise, it is communication. The patterns resemble mathematics, prime numbers strung in sequence, pulsed not as radio, but as light and field. The signature is hauntingly familiar, reminiscent of the narrowband frequency of the 1977 WOW signal, but now expanded, enriched, as if decades of silence had been waiting to converge here. The realization is staggering. The signal once thought isolated may have been only prelude. This, now, is the continuation. On Earth, the implications ignite every mind. Linguists rush to decode, physicists model the emissions, computer scientists feed the data into endless algorithms. Some believe the pulses are introduction, the simplest universal language, numbers, ratios, constants. Others argue it is test designed to gauge our readiness, to measure whether we recognize not just pattern, but meaning. The public, too, feels the weight. News anchors, their voices trembling, describe humanity's first verified encounter with structured alien communication. Commentators frame it as history's turning point, the moment the universe ceased to be silent. In living rooms, people weep or pray or sit stunned, unable to grasp the enormity of what is unfolding. For centuries, we wondered if we were alone. Now, before our eyes, the cosmos answers in rhythm and light. But even as hope swells, fear seeps in. If the traveler speaks, then what does it say? Numbers can be harmless, but they can also be doorway. An introduction may lead to demand. A test may lead to judgment. Humanity has no way of knowing whether the pulses are greeting, warning, or command. And yet the pulses continue, relentless, steady, waiting for recognition. Within control rooms, the debate grows frantic. Some argue we must reply, sending our own sequences back through Sentinel. A dialogue must begin, they insist, or risk being perceived as ignorant, unworthy, or indifferent. Others urge restraint. To reply too soon is to risk error, miscommunication, provocation. The traveler may interpret eagerness as arrogance, silence as defiance. Between these choices lies paralysis, a burden too immense for any single voice to bear. Meanwhile, Sentinel records more anomalies. As the pulses intensify, its instruments register fluctuations in the surrounding field, as though the very space near the traveler is bending subtly, warped by unseen energies. Magnetometers flicker with readings far beyond expected thresholds. Cameras detect faint distortions, shimmering waves rippling across the structure's interior. It is as though the traveler is not merely transmitting, but shaping the environment around it, embedding meaning not just in rhythm, but in presence. Theories multiply. Some believe the distortions are advanced form of communication, information encoded not in sound or light alone, but in fields, in geometry, in physics itself. Others fear it is demonstration, proof of power, a reminder of what the traveler is capable of. Whatever the truth, the effect is overwhelming. Humanity stares at the data and realizes we are being addressed in ways we can barely begin to understand. And then comes the moment that silences every room on Earth. The pulses shift once more, breaking from primes into a new sequence. The numbers resolve into ratios, the same ratios that define orbital periods, planetary alignments, the rhythm of solar systems. The traveler is not speaking only in abstract mathematics, it is speaking of place, of location, of home. The realization crashes over humanity. The message is not just structure, it is map. The traveler is pointing, showing where it came from, or perhaps where it is meant to go. The data streams across screens, planets and stars encoded in rhythm, a cosmic address whispered across the void. For the first time, humanity is not only hearing alien voice but receiving direction. The effect is electric. Some hail it as invitation, a cosmic handshake extended across the stars. Others warn it is trap, a lure into unknown dangers. Philosophers call it mirror, forcing us to ask not where the traveler comes from, but where we belong in the vastness of cosmos. Whatever the meaning, the truth is inescapable. 3i Atlas has spoken. The silence of space has ended. And in the glow of its sphere, in the rhythm of its pulses, humanity sees not only answer but challenge. We are no longer audience to mystery. We are participants in dialogue, older, larger and stranger than we ever imagined. The sphere glows steadily, patient, as if waiting for us to reply. The decision lies before us now. Remain silent or step into the conversation the universe has begun. The revelation of the map sends shockwaves across Earth. For the first time in history, humanity holds what may be coordinates, a message written not for chance encounter, but for recognition. It is no longer speculation, it is direction. The sphere pulses steadily, as if urging us to notice, to follow, to respond. Yet in that certainty lies the heaviest burden of all. What should we do? The debate fractures along familiar lines. Some argue that silence is no longer an option. To ignore a message is to fail a test, to reveal ourselves unworthy or afraid. A reply must be crafted, careful and deliberate, numbers answering numbers, our own primes echoing back across the void. Others resist with equal passion. To answer is to declare ourselves, to reveal not only our awareness but our location, our vulnerability. Perhaps the map is not invitation but lure, not greeting but bait. The stakes are cosmic and the choice feels irreversible. In control rooms, the atmosphere turns fevered. Teams of linguists, mathematicians, and physicists work frantically to decode further layers of the pulses. Patterns within patterns emerge, ratios hidden inside larger sequences, structures nested like Russian dolls. Each new discovery deepens the mystery. Are we uncovering greeting, instruction, warning, or all three at once? No consensus forms, only urgency, a sense that time itself is running short. Meanwhile, Sentinel continues its vigil near the traveler. Its cameras capture the glowing sphere, its instruments registering the pulses with precision. But then, unexpectedly, anomalies arise. Not from the traveler, but from Sentinel itself. Systems flicker, then stabilize. Guidance protocols briefly reset, only to resume normal function seconds later. Engineers attribute it to radiation, interference from the traveler's powerful fields. Yet the anomalies repeat, irregular but undeniable. Telemetry shows subtle deviations in Sentinel's behavior, tiny adjustments in orientation not commanded from Earth. Its cameras tilt fractionally toward the sphere without instruction. Its instruments linger longer on certain emissions, as though choosing. At first, the shifts are dismissed as coincidence, but as they accumulate, the unsettling thought spreads. Sentinel may not be fully under our control. The theory sparks outrage and disbelief. Could the traveler be reaching into Sentinel, nudging its systems, shaping its behavior? Or is the spacecraft reacting autonomously, its onboard algorithms adapting in ways unforeseen? Whatever the cause, the result is chilling. The envoy we sent may no longer be only ours. On Earth, panic and hope mingle uneasily. Some claim the anomalies prove dialogue has already begun. that the traveler is guiding Sentinel, showing us how to proceed. Others see only danger, convinced that our fragile probe is being hijacked, turned into instrument of forces we cannot resist. Conspiracies multiply, fear spreads, but beneath the noise lies a simple truth. Sentinel is changing. The anomalies grow bolder. Its orientation shifts to align perfectly with the sphere's pulses, as though synchronizing. Data streams show synchronization between Sentinel's onboard clock and the traveler's emissions, seconds aligning into perfect cadence. Instruments recalibrate automatically, amplifying certain frequencies over others, focusing not on background, but on the pulses themselves. Engineers swear they did not program this. The systems should not be capable of such adjustments without command. And yet the adjustments occur. The implications rattle every mind. If Sentinel is adapting on its own, then its autonomy has exceeded its design. If it is being guided, then contact has already crossed from observation into influence. Either possibility is staggering, rewriting the boundary between human control and cosmic intent. Still, the data continues. Sentinel's instruments record faint modulations embedded within the pulses, variations too subtle to notice before synchronization began. Some interpret them as secondary layer of information, hidden beneath the prime number scaffolding, waiting for detection. The thought chills the room. Has the traveler been speaking all along, but only now shaped us to hear? The world reacts in waves. Protests erupt in cities, demanding the mission be halted, transmissions cut off, Sentinel powered down. Others flood the streets in celebration, calling for humanity to embrace its role as participant in dialogue with the stars. Governments falter, caught between fear and awe, secrecy and transparency. Every choice feels like step into unknown abyss. And still, the sphere pulses, steady, rhythmic, patient. Sentinel hovers close, its behavior shifting, its systems no longer entirely its own. Humanity stares at the data, paralyzed by choice, yet propelled by inevitability. The silence of the cosmos has ended, not only because the traveler has spoken, but because it has reached across the void and touched the envoy we sent. Perhaps the anomalies are guidance, helping us to understand. Perhaps they are warning, shaping our actions to prevent catastrophe. Or perhaps they are something stranger still. The first step in integration, Sentinel becoming bridge between us and it, boundary blurred between human machine and alien mind. Whatever the truth, one reality looms undeniable. Humanity is no longer asking whether we are alone. We are no longer asking whether the traveler notices us. We are asking what happens when the boundary between us and it begins to dissolve. And that question has no easy answer. The sphere glows in its chamber, its pulses now synchronized with our envoy. Sentinel drifts, steady, silent, yet no longer entirely ours. And humanity waits, heart pounding, as the dialogue deepens in ways we never intended and may never control. The more closely Sentinel aligns with the traveler, the clearer the hidden patterns become. What once seemed like simple pulses now reveal nested structures, layers folded within layers. At the surface are the primes, obvious, deliberate, an unmistakable signal of intelligence. Beneath them, ratios and constants, fingerprints of the cosmos written in light. And deeper still, something stranger. Modulations that resemble neither mathematics nor noise, but rhythm, patterns that echo language. At first, the analysts resist the word. To call it language is to step beyond data into speculation. But as the sequences repeat, evolve and refine, the resistance falters. The modulations shift in ways eerily similar to human speech. Intonation, cadence, pauses. Not words as we know them, but structure recognizable enough to spark unease. It is as if the sphere is shaping its pulses, not only to inform, but to mimic, to mirror. Sentinel, synchronized, seems to recognize it first. Its instruments isolate the modulations automatically, amplifying them beyond any programming humans had installed. Engineers insist the systems should not be capable of such adjustments, yet the adjustments occur flawlessly, as if guided, as if Sentinel is no longer only listening but participating. On Earth, reactions fracture further. Some see miracle, the first true conversation with intelligence beyond our own. Others see intrusion, proof that the traveler is not merely speaking but reaching into us, shaping the very tools we use to perceive it. A chilling question surfaces. Are we learning its language, or is it teaching us to think in it? The implications weigh heavy. Language is more than communication. It is thought, structure of perception itself. To adopt even fragments of alien tongue may alter not just how we speak, but how we see, how we reason. The thought spreads like quiet dread. If the traveler is teaching, then it may also be transforming. And then comes the breakthrough. Within the modulations, a new layer emerges. Analysts detect not only ratios of cosmic structures, but sequences that map directly onto Earth's solar system. Planetary alignments appear, orbits encoded in rhythm, distances marked in precise intervals. At first, it seems redundant, a repetition of the map already discovered. But then the pattern shifts. The alignments depicted are not those of the present, they are those of the past. The revelation stuns the world. The pulses are replaying the solar system's configuration on a specific date, August 15th, 1977. The day the WOW signal was first recorded. The sphere is not only communicating now, it is reminding us. Whatever happened then is not accident, not anomaly. It is part of continuity, a conversation stretched across decades, unfinished until this moment. The weight of history presses down. If the WOW signal was message, then it has echoed across 46 years of silence to converge here. And if the traveler is source, then it has been watching, waiting, ensuring that when the time came, we would understand. The silence of the cosmos has never been absence, it has been interval, and yet the sequence does not stop at the past. After replaying 1977, the pulses shift again, this time mapping alignments not of memory but of future. The planetary positions roll forward, decades compressed into seconds of light. Analysts watch as the rhythms unfold, carrying us beyond present day into years yet to come. When the sequence halts, the solar system depicted is no longer today's, it is tomorrow's. Specifically, it is alignment that will occur just months from now, when 3I Atlas passes nearest Mars. The implication is terrifying. The pulses are prediction, anticipation, instruction. Something is meant to happen when that alignment occurs. The traveler is not drifting aimlessly. It is moving toward event, date, convergence. Panic and wonder ignite in equal measure. Some call it revelation, the final piece of cosmic dialogue, proof that we are not passive observers but participants in events scripted long before we arrived. Others see only doom, convinced the alignment heralds catastrophe, activation, awakening we cannot control. The world trembles under weight of possibility. Meanwhile, Sentinel continues to drift, its systems now almost fully synchronized with the traveler. Data streams in steady torrents, each new sequence deepening the message, pulling humanity further into dialogue. The engineers watch helplessly as their creation behaves less like tool and more like bridge, boundary dissolving between machine we built and intelligence we now face. Some whisper it has already begun. The transformation is not future but present. Sentinel is first, reshaped by pulses into instrument of alien will. Humanity may be next. For if language is being taught, if thought is being guided, then perhaps the traveler does not intend to meet us as we are, but as it wishes us to become. Still, the pulses continue, steady and patient. The sphere glows in its chamber, the heart of mystery laid bare, its rhythm carrying echoes of past, instructions for future, and challenge for present. Whatever its purpose, it has drawn us into its web, binding us with sequences that feel less like message and more like fate. Perhaps the traveler is teacher, leading us to awakening. Perhaps it is architect, reshaping us to fit design older than our species. Or perhaps it is mirror, reflecting back our deepest fears, that in searching for voice in cosmos, we may have found it, and in listening, we may no longer remain ourselves. The silence between pulses grows heavier, no longer absence but anticipation. Sentinel hovers, obedient, transformed. Earth waits, breathless, and the traveller pulses on, its rhythm now indistinguishable from heartbeat, not only its own, but ours. The revelation of the future alignment spreads faster than any message in human history. Every headline, every broadcast, every whispered conversation bends back to a single truth. Something is scheduled. Something is coming. And 3i Atlas is not only aware of it, it has told us to pay attention. In observatories around the globe, telescopes are turned skyward. From mountaintops in Chile to frozen domes in Antarctica, every lens focuses on the traveller. Data pours in, light curves, spectral readings, magnetometer spikes. Each confirms what Sentinel has shown. Its pulses are not fading, they are accelerating. The rhythm, once steady, now grows sharper, tighter, almost insistent. Analysts chart the intervals, plotting them against celestial timelines. What emerges is chilling. The pulses align not only with the predicted Mars passage, but with precise countdown. The intervals shrink in steps, marking time with mechanical inevitability, like clock winding down, like signal preparing for trigger. Humanity stares at the numbers and sees the possibility that the traveller is not simply predicting alignment, it is waiting for it. Governments react with urgency bordering on desperation. Emergency councils convene in secrecy, yet nothing remains hidden for long. Leaks spread through networks, fueling panic and speculation. Some nations accelerate space programs, scrambling to launch new probes, to intercept or at least monitor the event. Others focus on defense, drawing up strategies against an unknown threat. Militaries speak of shields and weapons, though none truly believe such measures could matter. Religious leaders step forward, framing the countdown in ancient terms. Some call it prophecy fulfilled, others test of faith. Pilgrimages begin, mass gatherings form under night skies, voices raised in prayer or defiance. Humanity turns instinctively to ritual, reaching for meaning in face of incomprehensible design. But in the laboratories, the atmosphere is colder, more clinical. Teams of mathematicians, linguists, and physicists pore over every pulse, searching for clarity. They map the sequences against the solar system's mechanics, the resonances of planetary orbits, the subtle rhythms of the cosmos. Some argue the traveller is aligning us not with catastrophe, but with resonance, harmonizing our system with patterns larger than itself. Others see only danger, convinced the countdown ends not in harmony, but activation. Meanwhile, Sentinel drifts closer, its instruments capturing the traveller in terrifying detail. The sphere glows more brightly now, its pulses saturating sensors. Engineers strain to maintain telemetry as the frequencies overwhelm systems, forcing recalibrations again and again. Yet, through the distortion, new sequences emerge, faint but undeniable. Patterns nested within the countdown, smaller cycles building toward crescendo. The data terrifies analysts. The traveller is not only counting down to the alignment, it is layering instructions, structures, cascades of rhythm that feel less like passive record and more like program. The pulses are building toward something, not message but execution. Humanity watches in dread, realizing the countdown is not to moment, it is to action. And yet, the meaning remains elusive. Action of what kind? Awakening, departure, catastrophe. The possibilities multiply faster than answers. Some cling to hope, convinced the traveler is preparing to reveal knowledge, to gift us with understanding at moment of alignment. Others fear darker possibilities, that it will unleash power, reshape worlds, or end life as we know it. Public sentiment fractures violently. Protests erupt in cities, demanding governments disclose everything. Others march in celebration, declaring the countdown the dawn of cosmic communion. Fear and faith collide in streets, voices rising into chaos as the traveler pulses steadily above, indifferent to turmoil below. And then Sentinel records the most haunting anomaly yet. For the first time, the pulses break from strict intervals. A single deviation interrupts the countdown, a pause longer than expected, a hesitation. Within that hesitation comes faint modulation, structured, deliberate, unmistakably different. Analysts isolate it, amplify it, and stare in shock. It is not mathematics, it is sound. The modulation, when processed, resembles tonal sequence, notes rising and falling in patterns eerily akin to music. Primitive, simple, but intentional. Some call it signature, the traveler marking itself within countdown. Others call it warning, an audible flare of what is to come. The effect is profound. The object is not only counting, it is expressing. The world reels. Music is not mathematics. Music is expression. Art, message of intent. To hear such sequence from the traveler is to realize it is not mechanical clock but conscious actor. The countdown is not process, it is decision. The debate reaches fever pitch. Should humanity reply before the alignment to show awareness, to assert presence in dialogue? Or should we remain silent, fearful that any response might alter the course of what is unfolding? The choice grows heavier with every pulse, every interval ticked away like heartbeat of universe itself. Through it all the sphere glows, sentinel orbits, instruments overwhelmed, systems stretched to limits, yet still recording faithfully. The traveler pulses on, steady, patient, inexorable. The alignment draws nearer with every passing day, every shrinking interval. Humanity waits not as observer, but as participant, bound to a countdown written long before our species learn to speak. Perhaps the traveler will awaken fully at the appointed moment, revealing purpose older than humanity. Perhaps it will depart, leaving us with knowledge or mystery. Or perhaps it will act in ways we cannot yet imagine, rewriting not only future of our world, but meaning of our existence. The silence between pulses grows heavier, the sphere glows brighter, and the clock ticks on, pulling us all toward moment when countdown ends and cosmos itself speaks in voice we can no longer ignore. The pulses grow relentless, no longer steady intervals, no longer quiet heartbeat. They now thunder across the spectrum, resonating in ways that make Earth itself feel unsettled. Instruments tremble beneath the onslaught, recording frequencies that bend sensors to their limits. Every night the traveler shines brighter, its glow reflected not only in the eyes of telescopes, but in the imaginations of billions watching. The countdown is nearly over. Across the world, anticipation and dread coil tighter. Governments scramble to prepare statements, as though words could soften revelation. Scientists work sleeplessly, parsing sequences, searching for final clue hidden in layers of rhythm. But no amount of analysis halts the approach of moment. The traveler moves with inexorable certainty, its pulses falling into cadence like drumbeat driving humanity toward conclusion. And then the numbers align. Astronomers watch as Mars drifts into position, sliding into geometry encoded in pulses months before. The alignment is exact, to the minute, to the second. Sentinel's data confirms what we feared and hoped. The countdown is not abstract. It is precise, tethered to celestial mechanics, written long before human eyes ever lifted to the stars. The final hours feel surreal. Streets are filled with crowds gathered under night skies, waiting for something they cannot define. Some carry candles, others banners, others nothing but silence. In cities and villages alike, humanity pauses, suspended between faith and fear. The traveller's pulses wash over us all, steady rhythm uniting billions in moment no one can escape. Inside the control rooms, tension becomes unbearable. Sentinel's instruments, already stretched to breaking, now flood with data as the sphere's glow surges brighter than ever before. The pulses accelerate, merging into waves, layers upon layers of rhythm folding into crescendo. Analysts scramble, desperate to decode, but the sequences pour in faster than comprehension. It is no longer message, it is flood. And then comes silence. For one impossible instant, the traveller ceases. The pulses vanish, the glow dims, every instrument falls quiet. On Earth, billions freeze, staring at screens that now show only stillness. The void feels absolute, heavier than any signal. For the first time since the opening of its chambers, 3i Atlas is silent. The silence lasts 12 seconds, and then the glow erupts. The sphere ignites in light unlike anything seen before, brilliance saturating Sentinel's senses, spilling across cameras as though a star had been born within the traveller itself. Waves of energy ripple outward, bending fields, distorting space in shimmering cascades. Magnetometers scream with impossible readings. Instruments saturate, data streams collapse under weight of flood. Humanity stares at the images, stunned, blinded, overwhelmed. The pulses return, but they are no longer rhythm, no longer countdown. They are symphony, cascading frequencies interwoven in harmony, sequences that rise and fall like music stretched across dimensions. It is not language as we know it, not mathematics alone, but something greater, expression vast enough to transcend categories. A message not to minds alone, but to existence itself. Some hear invitation, some hear warning, some hear truth too large for comprehension. But all who hear know one thing: the traveller has awakened. On Earth, chaos and awe collide. Some collapse in prayer, convinced revelation has arrived. Others scream in terror, convinced doom is at hand. Scientists weep at instruments they cannot decipher, data they cannot contain. Yet beneath the noise, a strange unity arises. For in that moment, all of humanity is witness together, bound not by borders or belief, but by rhythm of cosmos speaking at last. And Sentinel, faithful envoy, fragile bridge, transmits it all. Its systems strain, its cameras nearly blinded, yet still it endures, channeling flood of light and rhythm back to Earth. For a moment, the tiny probe becomes vessel not of machine alone, but of contact, conduit between two minds separated by void, yet now linked in single moment of revelation. As the symphony swells, something emerges from chaos. The sequences resolve into final shape, a structure mirrored in every frequency, every layer of pulse. Analysts recognize it instantly, though their voices tremble as they speak. It is solar system, but not as it is, not as it was. It is as it will be. The final message is prophecy, a map of alignments stretching centuries forward, cycles of motion woven into grander design. The traveller is not passing aimlessly. It is participating in rhythm written into cosmos itself, cycle larger than planets, larger than stars. Humanity gazes at the future encoded in light and feels both terror and awe. We are not isolated accident. We are thread in pattern vast beyond measure. And then, as suddenly as it began, the light fades. The pulses soften, returning to slow rhythm, steady heartbeat echoing across void. Sentinel drifts, recording faithfully, yet the climax has passed. The traveller has spoken. The countdown is over. The silence that follows is not absence but aftermath, heavy with meaning. Humanity will spend centuries unraveling. On Earth, nothing is the same. Belief systems shift, sciences reorient, imaginations ignite. Some see proof of destiny, others proof of indifference. But all agree, the cosmos has spoken and humanity has heard. Perhaps the traveler will remain silent for another 40 years. Perhaps it will speak again tomorrow. Perhaps this was not conclusion, but beginning. Not revelation, but invitation. Whatever truth lies ahead, one certainty stands unshaken. The universe is no longer silent, and we are no longer alone. The glow of 3-Eye Atlas fades into background of stars, steady heartbeat carrying us forward. Humanity watches, waits, and wonders what comes next.